All right, we are live and back. Thank you guys who were just on DVR and the two mics. That was a fantastic segment. Hopefully, people will be filtering in as we start this new kind of stream. Unfortunately, some of the social media platforms out there don't allow us to stream for more than 4 hours, and so I had to kind of break this up. So there'll be another shift later on in the day, but we have a fantastic crew that are joining us right now. That is two TGFBI overall champions and two other guys who have been fantastic in TGFBI. So I wanted to bring you guys all together and act as like a brain trust for the industry. So joining me right now, first, Todd Zola, one of my favorite people in the industry, a legend in the industry, Hall of Famer in the industry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Happy to lead off. You get the speed at the top of the order.
There you go. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then talk about what you do.
I can be reached at Todd Zola, TODDZOLA. What I do is, what do I do? I sit at my desk all day and just crunch numbers and dream Excel. I run mastersball.com. I have a platinum service. Giving away at least one subscription. Justin's in charge of that. Give away as many as we want. I do some freelance for RotoWire. I do some freelance for ESPN. I have a couple shows on Sirius XM. I don't see Mr. Davitt. Is PD here?
I'm hoping he's going to join us at some point. Hopefully.
All right. I'm a frequent guest on PD's show as well.
Mm-hmm. So he's got a really, really cool prize that we're going to be giving away this segment. So I'm hoping he shows up at some point, but he may have had trouble.
He may be in quarantine at the border. He may be stuck in quarantine.
You never know. I mean, the Canadians, you can't get in. They're super nice, but you can't get in there. So joining us as well is Kevin Hastings, who won the 2020 TGFBI overall. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Justin. Thank you for having me. More importantly, thank you for doing this. My wife is a therapist, and it's an industry that is often overlooked and maybe needed more now than ever. So thank you very much.
I appreciate you coming on, and anything we can do to help people in this time. I know that the COVID days, pandemic days can be very scary and overwhelming for people. And I think it's a really important time to really emphasize mental health and helping people get as much help that they can get. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate what your wife does for a living. Joining us as well is Joel Hennard, a guy who is ranked in the top 25 overall in the historical standings of TGFBI, which are on the TGFBI website, tgfbi.com, if you want to see those historical standings. Joel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Justin, for having me. I appreciate it.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug what you do.
I am at Joel Hennard, right there, nice and easy. My name. I am the host of the Fantasy Insider Show for the last 12 years. I'm the guy that sits just behind the mic and talks and takes all your guys' information and plugs it into a nice podcast.
Yes, you do. And hopefully Patrick Davitt will be joining us at some point. We're going to push on without him for right now, but we'll hope that he does show up and join us, because he is a fantastic person in this industry. Love Baseball HQ Radio. I've been on it a few times myself. And Patrick is in the top 25 of the historical standings as well. And so he really knows how to play this game. So what I want to talk to you guys about is how to be successful in a league like TGFBI. Now, not everybody watching or listening is going to be in TGFBI, but there are leagues just like it, like the Main Event, like other NFBC leagues that have your regular league and then your overall. So, Kevin, talk a little bit about what you did in your year that you won that made you so successful.
I think a couple of things. First of all, I don't necessarily draft with the overall component in mind. I'm mainly drafting, trying to win my league. However, with the caveat that we hear so often, in an overall, you can't punt any categories, but I typically don't like to do that anyway. So going pretty balanced, and then have a plan and stick to it. as much as you can. Of course, you have to be flexible and be able to react to what's going on in your draft, but have several scenarios worked out so that on the fly you are able to make those adjustments. And then it really comes down to in-season management. Much more important in my mind than the actual draft. You can set yourself up to make that management a little easier on yourself throughout the season at the draft, but it's we hear it so often. It's a grind, and you have to consistently stick to it throughout the season.
Todd, what about you? Like, what did you do in your year that you won TGFBI? And also, like, you've won Tout Wars, before. You've won some really big leagues with really tough players. So what is about your strategy has been successful?
Well, I got this DeLorean out back. So I get this flux capacitor. No, basically, Kevin's first couple of statements, that is if he read my mind. I don't think you try to win the overall. By that, you hear people say it's an overall and you need to take chances. I don't think you need to take chances. I think you need to, I may disagree a little with Kevin. I think you need a really solid draft. You need a the in-season management is important, but you need to get a really, really solid draft too to make it work. You can win a league. You could sneak out a league with in-season management. The overall, man, you just need a solid draft. And a lot of that is just get lucky, having pieces fall in your lap, to be honest with you. The pieces of mine that I had it was in the happy ball era. So I'm a guy that likes to draft playing time. And the best way to take advantage of the happy ball was to have guys that were playing more. So they got more home run. Marcus Semien, I didn't know, he just happened to be one of the happy ball guys, but he plays every darn day. Yuli Gurriel played every darn day. So to me, I'd rather have those guys than, this year it's hard. It's such a wacky year. You can't put your finger on this is the risky guy because they're all risky. For years it was I need to draft Bryce. I actually have a couple. You need to draft Bryce Harper because if he goes off this year, I'm going to win the overall. Maybe this year it's I need to draft Mondesi and then a couple rounds later get Judge and Stanton to win the overall. No, you don't. If all those guys come in the stars align, maybe you will, but there's a better chance you won't. So just draft really solid players, and then the in-season management is really important. Let's be honest, too. The difference between a winning team and a non-winning team, if you really look at rosters, is not that much. So you need a little luck. Well, no, you need a lot of luck.
Stop.
You do. You put yourself in the position. People do well year after year. They're very good players. Whether they finish in first or second or third or fourth had to do with Lady Luck that year.
All right. And that's true. Like it sometimes comes down to the last at bat, the last, inning pitch, a save here or win there. And that's what propels you to win a league. So I can't imagine it's, too much different from an overall. Luck kind of comes into factor when you get the right stats at the right time. Joel, talk about, you haven't won the overall, but you've done really, really well pretty much every year you've been in TGFBI. Talk about what your process has been. You're on mute.
He's saying the most greatest advice right now.
I am saying terrible things. 2 years ago was my first Roto League ever. Was TGFBI. I had never played before. I had been to Baseball HQ's first forum for years and learned that at bats were kind of the important thing in Roto. So I looked at my lists and found guys and rotated people through Excel just for at bats. And as the draft falls, I start picking those guys that have the 500 plus, the 450, 485 batting, plate appearances and those type of things. It just kind of worked out. And one of the other things that I'd never done, in Roto or in any of my other leagues, I'd never taken a pitcher ever in the first round. And in 2019, DeGrom fell to me and I said, well, let's gamble and see how this works out. And it kind of did. So I've been rolling with that since then. I've taken pitchers in the first round the last 2 years, and I will probably do it again this year at 13.
All right. Well, that's it's really cool that you had never even played in a roto league and then you've already had this success. So it's just about identifying how the system works in each individual format and then putting in your strategy for it. So that's pretty cool to see that you've had success so quickly in kind of a new format for you.
Well, yeah, thanks. I kind of follow everyone that's in this room and, pay attention to what you guys say and what you do. I had only just played in head-to-head. I'd only been doing this for fun. And then you put out this wonderful league that said, hey, if you have any experience doing podcasting or writing, I'd like you to play in my league. And that was the first opportunity for me to step in and say, well, I got to give this a go.
Well, and I'm glad you did. You are one of my favorite people in the industry. All three of you guys are. You guys are all fantastic ambassadors.
All the guests.
No, not all the guests. Most of them, but not all of them.
Which ones? Well, which ones aren't? Which ones?
Well, Dave McDonald will be on later.
Spore.
Spore is going to be on, I think, next segment. So, I'm actually going to leave during his part of this. So, and not because I really need a bathroom break and I've already been doing this for almost 3 hours, but, just because it's him and I have to deal with him enough. So let's talk a little bit about like the risk management you kind of alluded to, Todd. I think some people are like, I want to take the risk. I want to get these guys that are going to pop, and that'll pop me up to the overall. But like you said, if you get a bunch of that risk, then it becomes harder for them all to pop. And the one thing, like every year I go and look at the teams that finish really, really high in the overall TGFBI, in the overall of the main event, and I really kind of look and dissect what they did, and it doesn't look very risky. So how much risk can you take in an overall contest like TGFBI, Todd?
I think, this is cliche. This isn't, you're not going to win an award because of this segment of the Podapolooza, but you be safe early, you take chances later. I mean, it's common. I think that's a lot of people will say. And you kind of alluded to it. I talked about it earlier. People don't just take one risk, right? People, if you're risky, you take risks up and down. So I'm actually kind of glad if Bryce Harper were to pop, that team's going to be good, but they're going to be taking chances on all their other picks, and they're not all going to work out. So it's almost like, all right, if Bryce Harper did pop, at least it's not on a team that's going to win because their pitcher is going to not pop or whatever. So it balances itself out there. But and now you take chances. I calculated risks, perhaps. I think the team, maybe this is what Kevin's alluding to in in-season management. I think you take chances with Fab. You try to you get the week ahead. So you're not killing your team. If the guy didn't become closer, you drop him and you take the next guy. But if you were pressing it and he did become closer, then you got yourself a closer for $5, where all the other leagues are getting him for 55 the following week.
Joel, how do you manage kind of risk in a draft? In terms of, guys who could pop, maybe guys who are dealing with injuries or have long injury track records. Like, where's your risk management profile?
Well, because I hang out with the injury expert a lot, Will Carroll, I kind of stay away from those injury guys for just, a few reasons. He tells me to, hey, don't draft that guy. He's hurting, I ask, how's Strasburg? The hand's fine. Okay, that's good. Those are the things I have people to go to ask questions that say, during this part of the draft, I have this guy, and 3 of them are injured and 1 of them's not. Will's going to sniff in my ear or tell me in my ear and say, don't do that. So that's kind of the way that I kind of do things. I use my research and my resources for help.
All right. Risks. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with everything Joel and Todd has said. Another thing is, for me, trying not to put all my eggs in one basket for a category. That's the problem for me I love Mondesi. I'm a Royals fan.
I'm sorry.
I have drafted him in a couple of drafts, but I probably won't in TGFBI or in any of the bigger leagues coming up the rest of draft season. If something happens to him, you're not replacing the stolen bases you counted on. I really try to draft guys that aren't going to give me a 0 all throughout the draft. A couple of guys, I had Abreu last year, and Jordan Alvarez, but pretty much everybody else throughout my draft was someone that would steal 4, 5, 6 bases at least in my mind over a full season. It spread it out. There's balance with calculated risk, like Todd was saying, is probably the simplest phrase to put it.
All right, yeah. I mean that makes a lot of sense. Like I love the idea of Mondesi. It's really hard for me to roster him without like rostering what I like to call, or what we call over at Friends Fantasy Benefits, a pillow guy. So if you draft a guy with a bad batting average or potentially low batting average, then you have to pair him with someone else. And we've seen that work with, some strategies. And then we've seen it totally backfire where, you draft, what was the one back of the day was Chris Carter. They get the power of Chris Carter, and then you draft Michael Brantley for the batting average. Well, if Chris Carter sucks or gets injured, then you just got the batting average. You didn't get the power. Or, if your batting average guy, he has a really low BABIP, gets unlucky, like you may not get a good batting average that you need. And so it's sometimes hard to take these guys that have such variance or, extreme downside and then try to make it up later, because the puzzle may not come together in season.
Yeah, I'll take your Chris Carter and raise you an Adam Dunn and Ichiro Suzuki.
There you go.
That was the classic one. That especially because it was an auction. That was more auction era, so everybody would try to get those two in auctions, and sometimes you could get them combined for cheaper than what you would get if you took two players and averaged them out. But yeah, there's risk. There's risk.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's like some of these strategies are great ideas, but you just don't know if they're always going to pan out. And obviously, anybody cannot pan out, right? Someone can get hurt, or just underperform. I don't think anybody thought Christian Yelich was going to perform the way he did last year, and that just sucks when it happens. But giving yourself the least amount of risk possible. And this is coming from me, right? I'm the guy who did these mistakes in my 2019 main event, drafted a bunch of high variance players, injury risk players, thought if I can just make it to May, I'm winning the main event overall. And I didn't make it to May. I don't even know if I made it like through most of April and had set $1,700 on fire. So learn from my mistakes, people. Please learn from my mistakes. So what we're doing today is we are raising money for Mental Health America. It's a fantastic organization that does a lot of good for people who suffer from mental illness. You can, I've got to add the ticker. You see, when I switch over to the new stream, I'm all thrown off. So down below on the ticker, if you're watching live, you can see where you can donate. JustinMasonFantasy@gmail.com via PayPal, or at Justin Salinger on Venmo. Every dollar raised goes to Mental Health America today. We're already over, $2,700 raised thus far. And you can win lots of prizes. For every dollar you donate, you get a raffle ticket into the prizes or for the prizes. Some amazing prizes. Let's give away a prize right now. Since we do have Mr. Todd Zola on, let's give away the Masters Ball Platinum subscription that Todd has offered. Todd, before I randomize and we choose the winner, talk a little bit about what you get in that Platinum subscription.
You get it's mostly draft prep, although this year I may have a little bit of in-season stuff, projections, profiles, strategy pieces. I'm going to put some prospect lists up this weekend, some draft trackers. I don't have draft software, but some draft trackers for the points leagues, access. And I don't answer questions on Twitter. Call me a snob or whatever you may, but I answer every single one of your darn questions on my board. So if you want my stuff, post it on the board, and I drop whatever I'm doing to answer the questions. So you get me, you get that. In season, well, you get my RotoWire content as well, my Z files and my pitching and hitting rankings. And this year, I think I'm gonna swing back over to the DFS and do some daily projections and some picks and stuff of that nature. So I know some people use it and all they get is the projections and they draft, and that's fine. Please, it helps my bank account. Not that I'm missing any meals, obviously, but I like to think of it as a companion site, companion to RotoWire, companion to Baseball HQ, and companion to RotoWorld. If you don't, something where you get your news. I'm sorry, NBC Sports right now.
NFBC or NBC Sports Edge.
Sports Edge. Okay, so I want to get it right, but due respect, Matthew Polio and the gang do a wonderful job. Even though I work for RotoWire, but credit where credit is due. The ex RotoWorld now and an NBC site is really good. Anyway, so that's what you get, and a lot of NFBC people sign up. I have a lot of champions that sign up. And are we supposed to be smoking? Did I miss that memo?
Yeah, no, I'm stuck in here for 9 straight hours, and I'm going to be smoking the whole time. So feel free.
I got enough vices, my friends. I got enough vices. I don't need to add smoking. I'm telling you.
Please don't. Smoking is not cool, right? Yeah, filthy habit. Definitely don't.
All 5 of my chins. They don't. Yeah.
The advantage to smoking, though, was my first trip to First Pitch, Arizona. I got to hang out with Justin and Joel several times a day.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You lucked out right there. So the winner is Keith Tonsager, and I will give Todd your information to connect you guys, so that way you can get that Master Balls Platinum subscription. It's fantastic. So definitely, if you didn't win, I'm sorry, but go and subscribe. It's definitely worth it to get all the information from Todd. He's one of the best in the industry.
I'll put this out there now. When I won in 2019, I made it free to everybody that was in the TGFBI as sort of a thank you. You guys let me win this year. I'll do it again. So
there you go.
You have a decision. Do you draft? You're not going to. What are the chances of winning? 1 in what? 435, Justin. What is it this year?
1 in 435.
Or I know I can get Zola's stuff. Mm-hmm. So just tank it and just get the free subscription. That's all. I'll put it out there. Make a decision. Be smart. We're smart. It's a smart industry. Be smart about it.
Todd, say the name of your website one more time, just so people can know where to get it, because there are a couple people in the chat that are asking where you're found.
It is mastersball.com with an S in the middle. Otherwise, you go to a racquetball site. Masters, MASTERS ball, mastersball.com. It's a link from my Twitter. That's a lot easier. TODDZOLA. Been around since 97. Went away for a couple years and back again. So one of the I don't know what's called pioneers, a little bit, little over the top, but it's one of the original sites. That, the site. Well, I didn't. People at this point, Zola started Jason Gray started Masters Ball. I want to give credit there, but I have been with him since pretty much the beginning though. I never know. And you guys do this more than me. Am I supposed to look at you or the camera?
Whatever you want to do. I look at everything. I'm turning and working on the other computer.
I do this with Clay Link now. Of all the RotoWire pairs to have up, showing on YouTube now. They choose whatever but I shouldn't insult Clay like that. He's a fine looking individual, but we got the tough to compete with some of the other hunks and the RotoWire cast.
All right. Also, prize given away. Joel, you're going to give away some beer, right?
I am. I work for Sun King Brewery here in Indianapolis. I'm going to give away 4 King's Reserve bourbon barrel beers. I'll send them out to you, 4 different beers. When Justin gets me in contact, I'll ask you your flavor profile and figure out what you want. We've done everything from sours to wheats to ales to lagers. This week we actually made a beer with churros. So, that's kind of interesting and cool. I'll send you one of those if you want. But yeah, I'll give it away.
If Eno wins, I'm calling Fix.
All right. And
look who's here.
The winner of that beer is Dave Poping. I will connect you to Dave's actually one of my writers at Friends of Fantasy Benefits. He will be stoked. Lives in the Milwaukee area, so it's not going to be too much in shipping. That'll be nice. So, Dave, congratulations. Joining us now is Patrick Davitt. Patrick, thank you for coming on, and we're going to give away your prize because you are giving away kind of my favorite prize of the day, and that's a segment as a guest on Baseball HQ Radio with Patrick Davitt. So talk a little bit. One, tell everybody where you can reach on social media, and then talk about what you do at Baseball HQ while I randomize this over here.
All right. Well, it's at Patrick Davitt. Patrick like the Saint, Davitt, all one word, all lowercase. For Twitter, Baseball HQ, of course, and then Baseball HQ Radio. The podcast is available on pretty much all the podcast getters except Spotify, which we somehow can't figure out how to get connected to, but we're working on that as well. So yeah, look us up, Baseball HQ Radio. It's a pretty good podcast, been going for an awful long time. I see some familiar faces on this call, as a matter of fact, and I hope to get all of the faces on this call on the show at some point sooner or later. So yeah, I thought it'd be fun to get somebody who's participating onto the show, talk to a regular guy instead of an expert all the time, and see what's going on.
All right. Well, Jonathan Becker. Jonathan Becker, you are the winner of this one.
I was
sorry, Todd, you did not win this time. Maybe next year you can be Patrick's guest on the podcast. But I'm sure you'll find your way. Yeah, I'm sure you'll find your way on at some point. So I will connect Jonathan with Patrick. Patrick, thank you for coming on. We've been talking about kind of risk management and your draft strategy. So I'm going to let you catch up right now and talk about what your draft strategies have been in TGFBI, because you have been doing very, very well every year you've been in, and then talk about kind of your risk management profile.
My draft strategy is to just kind of be flexible. If I come out of the draft with something I feel like I can work with, I think that's what I'm trying to do. There's an old saying says you can't win at the draft, but you can lose. And what I'm trying to do mostly is avoid losing by taking on too much risk, to your point. I'm also usually trying to be really aware of scarcity, not so much hard and fast value increases for catchers or that kind of stuff. I just want to be aware by keeping track of what the player pool looks like. If I'm running into a situation where there are no good second basemen, for instance, this year, I think it's going to be something of an issue. It has been for some guys I know and some experts and NFBC drafts. So you got to be mindful that you're covering all your bases. And then as far as flexibility goes, I put an increased emphasis on trying to get multi-position guys, but that's probably nothing new for serious players. Everybody wants to have that guy who can cover off a position, so that especially in NFBC formats where you only have those 7 slots to manage that situation with. So that's kind of my strategy. It's not really a strategy. And I think that even if you have a strategy, one of the key things is you got to be willing to drop it if the table's not going your way. For instance, I've heard some guys are going with what they call a full house strategy, 3 starters, 2 hitters in the first 5 rounds. But if you notice that the rest of the table is not grabbing starters at the rate you thought they were going to, then maybe you need to change your own tune and expect that there's going to be more pitchers later in the draft and fewer hitters. So you need to get on that. You need to respond to what's going on in the room. And as far as risk itself, I look at it as kind of a line graph with a rising line going from I'm real uncomfortable with risk in the low end at the 1, 2, 3 kind of rounds, and I get higher and higher, more risk accepting as I get farther and farther into the draft. Again, I don't think that's real surprise, but the extent to which I'm worried about risk, I think might be reflected in my draft in TGFBI this year. I'm picking 4th, and if Fernando Tatis were to fall to my slot, I'm not sure I'd take him. He's had 3 or 4 pretty serious injuries. A couple of them ended his seasons in 2018, 2019. And he's young, and the league catches up with young guys sometimes. I think there's injury risk. I think there's possible consistency risk. I think there's possible negative regression risk. There's things to consider when you're looking at Fernando Tatis, as tempting as the package is. And I think maybe if I was going to take a shot at Fernando Tatis, I'd be very risk averse in the next couple of rounds, or maybe even the next 3 or 4 rounds, to offset the possibility you really can't have your first overall pick get hurt or be really super ineffective. I think I'd be more tempted to look at a Mookie Betts or somebody who's been doing it a while, Trout even, who's been falling as far as 12. I think I might be tempted at 4 to take him just because I'm more comfortable that I know what I'm getting.
All right. Before we move on to our next segment, I wanted to kind of do two things, and our next topic, and do two things. One, in the comment section, and I'm putting it up on the screen right now, at Baseball Pod said, digging Joel's artwork in the back. Joel, you'll be giving away a piece of this artwork a little bit later on in Podapolooza. So talk about what it is.
Oh, we're going to give away the Star Wars half-face Darth Vader and his Stormtrooper. And my wife has been painting it for the last, 3 or 4 weeks. She's the artist in the house. She was excited to be able to give that away. It's got some pretty cool, I don't know, I'm not an artist. The texture pops off the canvas. You can actually feel it. I don't know what that's called. She's not here. I can't ask her. But yeah, that's the piece that we'll be giving away.
That's awesome. It's such a cool and different prize. There's so many cool prizes this year, just like Todd and Patrick just gave away, but also Joel, like that is one of my favorite things that we'll be giving away, and we'll be giving away later on. We've already given away so many prizes in this segment, but keep donating. For every dollar you donate to justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com via PayPal, or at Justin Salinger via Venmo will get you a raffle ticket, and you'll be entered in to win prizes. And we've raised over $2,800 at this point. For every $1,000 raised, I'm going to give a spot in next year's TGFBI away. So if you want to be in TGFBI, but you don't qualify or you haven't won a satellite league, the way to do it is to donate now and get entered into these raffles. So Joel, thank you so much for sharing your wife's artwork and then giving a piece away. That is super cool. I wish I was eligible. I'm not eligible because that would look so good in the office. And my wife is a huge Star Wars fan, so maybe she'll have to come in and donate so that way she's eligible. So, but no favoritism. I don't play favorites here, and if you listen to the podcast I do with my wife, you'll have heard that by now. So, and then we've got about 13 minutes left. I want to get to the last topic, but I don't want to run out of time and not give you guys a chance to promote yourselves again, because you guys are giving away 45 minutes of your time today and amazing gifts for this Podapolooza. So, Todd, remind people where you can reach on social media, and then plug everything that you do.
At Todd Zola, TODDZOLA. We don't have enough time to plug it to get the other guys. So mastersball.com, get a platinum subscription package. Check me out on RotoWire, ESPN, and if Patrick has me back on Baseball HQ Radio.
Yeah, for sure. We're doing the round table at the end of March.
There you go. Patrick, remind everybody where you can be reached on social media, and then plug everything you do.
Patrick Davitt on Twitter, pretty much it for social media. Baseball HQ Radio can be found on most podcast getters, and I still write, not as much as I used to, but I still write for baseballhq.com, so you can nose around there every once in a while, and mostly Twitter. If you want to get in touch with me, that's the way to do it.
There you go. And Joel, remind people where you can be reached and what you do.
All right, I am at Joel Henner, nice and easy. My name. I am the host of the Fantasy Insider Show. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Tuned In. We actually got into iHeartRadio, so I'm pretty happy with that. Patrick, it's real hard to get into Spotify. I haven't been able to work that out either. I also am the podcast producer for CincinnatiSportsDaily.com with Ryan Palancer and Hal McCoy. And I can be found on Twitter a lot. If you haven't seen my setup, I am the man of screens. And I can be found there and whatever you guys want to talk about.
All right. And then Kevin, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
Yeah, I am co-host of On the Wire podcast, new podcast on the Pitcher List Podcast Network with Adam Howe. We have an episode dropping tomorrow with yourself and Danielle as our guests, which was awesome. Thank you again for that. And I'll be writing weekly Fab article that will drop on Fridays throughout the season. The podcast we will record as late as possible Saturday evening, so it's as up to date as possible for Sunday Fab leagues. And all the articles, all the podcasts are free at Pitcher List. If you do join Pitcher List Plus, that gets you into a very active Discord. A lot of people in there all day long, every day, which is a great advantage to that as well. So, yeah, looking forward to getting this season started.
I am as well. I cannot wait. Let's talk about Fab. And Kevin, like you said, you do the On the Wire pod that Danielle and I were just on, and it's going to be dropped here tomorrow. And you guys are focusing a lot on the kind of in-season work that has to be done in order to be successful in leagues like TGFBI. So talk about how aggressive you are in Fab in how you treat it for a contest like this.
I think of aggressiveness in Fab a little bit differently than others. The aggressiveness for me is the guys I'm going to let go. And that was a lot easier to do in a short season, but I'm really going to try to carry that over into the longer season and not have guys sitting on my bench that are injured. Of course, I'm not going to drop a Mike Trout if he's going to come back in 4 weeks expected, but guys that I think we hang on to guys too long lots of times. So the aggressiveness for me is on the side of who I'm dropping more so than who I'm going after.
What about you, Todd? How do you approach Fab?
I'll give credit to Rob Silver. I heard him talk about this, and I said, wow, that's why didn't I think of that? What I'll do is, and based on previous experiences, previous years, try to figure out how much Fab I need per week just to manage my team, just to get the 2-start pitchers or things of that nature. So if I mean, as an arbitrary number, if I say it's $10, 26 weeks, that's $260. I now have 740 to play with. I don't have 1,000 to play with because I'm dedicating 10 a week. And that's just an arbitrary number to make the math easy, whatever you're comfortable with doing. So, if I bid $800 on a guy because I really want him, well, all right, I get the guy, but I maybe hurt myself the rest of the year. Maybe I cut it down to $5. So basically, it gives me a framework from which to work. And then I don't know if it's so much aggressive. I just think you need to be smart, and you take a look at what other people in your league are doing. And if this particular person is just putting money on every single closer, you kind of know what you need to put on a closer, or you learn patterns. The beginning, it's tough, but if I have 750 I'm willing to play with, I'll be aggressive early just because that player can help you the whole year. Now, if he doesn't, he gets hurt or it doesn't do well, you're in trouble. But I think I'm more aggressive, and I mentioned in an earlier segment, I'll take more chances in Fab than I will during the draft. I think Fab is where you can potentially make up the loss. Now, if I'm not going to just bid $700 on arbitrarily on anybody, but I think I'm more risky, especially if you can get the guy a week early before the price goes up. Look at the schedule, just anticipate somebody getting hurt that doesn't, while his velocity was down, I bet he's hurt, grab the next pitcher, things like that.
What about you, Patrick? How do you approach Fab in a league like this?
Gosh, teacher, Todd stole my answer. Yeah, I ran out of money in TGFBI in 2019, and I don't think it had a real material effect on how the outcome turned out, because I don't recall having a situation where I was carrying dead weight on my roster down that stretch. But I realized, with that 4 weeks left, it could have been really bad for me if I had zero money to invest. So I also am following that idea where I put aside a little bit of money. I think mine's going to be more like $6 or $7 a week. The
math's harder though. I don't know 6 times 26. The math is harder that way.
156, leaving you 846 or 844. Anyhow, I'm not going to be super dogmatic about it. And if I have to add in a few extra bucks from my big bets pool to make sure I get, a $20 guy, I think it's going to cost me, I'll do it. But I'm certainly not going to be as super aggressive as I was in 2019, where I literally ran myself out of money, because I just think that's bad management.
What he's saying is he would have beat me if he managed his money better.
No, I wouldn't.
What about you, Joel? How do you approach Fab?
Oh, I'm terrible at Fab. Fab is my enemy. For the last 2 years, I have beat my brains on the table from Friday to Sunday. I've overguessed myself more than asking him why I got married to this wonderful lady. I'm awful. If I didn't learn from Vlad the last, I would say 20 games of last year, I would have no idea what I'm doing going into this year. I did a lot of guessing. I overbid a buttload, more than I can say. Like I would bid $421. The next guy would be 51. So my problem is guessing the price. And I guess that's for everyone. It's impossible. It's really impossible. In the short season last year, you didn't know what player was going to go for what dollar value. And I'm the king of overbidding, but I always leave, like Todd said, about $250 just on the side, so I don't run out of money, and then I can fill in those at-bat players that I learned from Kevin to fill out my roster.
I mean, you can't be that bad at Fab if you've done so well. Like I said at the beginning of this, like,
look at it. Go back and look. I want you to go back and look at the mistakes that were made. Nicky Lopez, I drafted him, and it wasn't even the right player. I mean, I made those mistakes. So yes, it can be done.
So you can be bad at an aspect of the game and still be successful. That's a inspirational message, right?
It is. I think that I had gotten some of the sneaky good players for $2 or $3 and overbid on the players that are supposed to be able to help you, and they never do.
Well, how do you avoid those landmines? Because what do we call it? What is it? Is it Fabapalooza that they call it? That happens at some point every season, sometimes a few points where a prospect or some guy gets brought up and everybody's like going crazy. Like, how do you avoid those landmines there, Kevin?
Well, I think part of it is recognizing that a player may be an advantage, but you might not necessarily need him, and paying attention to who else in your league has the money. If all of the money is at teams towards the bottom of the list, let them have him, and let it go at times, I think. And that takes a little bit of discipline, because we all would love to have the bright, shiny new thing, but it may not be much of an improvement for your particular situation.
All right. And as we speak, we've gone over the $3,000 mark for money raised for Podapolooza going to Mental Health America. Really want to thank everybody for donating. It's an organization that does a lot of good, and we in the Mason household really like to support mental health and giving people the ability to get their mental health in check and in a good spot. So really appreciate everybody donating. We've got just a couple minutes left. So Todd, I'll ask you, how do you avoid the landmines in Fab?
Wait, the Mason household?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there. What was that?
I said, the Mason household or Salinger household?
I mean, it's whatever the household Danielle wants to call it. I'm not in charge here. This is why I'm out in a shed.
It's fun. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I don't say to myself, I need to do this to avoid the landmine. You just hope to make the right choices. And I mean, and it just goes in with the analysis. One way, don't chase a hot streak, because it's not going to stay hot probably, unless you notice a skills change or something like that. So I think the way you avoid the landmines is to not bid on luck and try to bid on skills, if that makes sense.
All right, Patrick, any thoughts on this for yourself?
I took his answer, right?
Yep. No, you didn't this time. Although what you said is certainly accurate. What I would caution people to do is make sure you're cognizant of playing time situations. Sometimes a guy will come up and start off pretty well, and you think to yourself, well, I should put in a big bid on this guy, but you've got to look down the road. Why is he even on the field? Is it because Mike Trout's got a temporary injury that he's going to be back next week? Guess what? He's not going to supplant Mike Trout over the entirety of the season if he's having a good week, and he's going to go back to what he was before, some kind of minor leaguer or some kind of guy on the end of the bench. And that's just the way it is. The flip side of that is sometimes if a player is moving into the spot of a player who has really underperformed, that's a fair bet. I think it's a reasonable bet to make that he may be able to stick, because he's not replacing a star, and he's replacing somebody who has struggled or demonstrated that he can't get things done. And the place to look at for that, I think, going back to what I said about Sam Hilliard, is take a look at that playing time situation in Colorado. There's a lot of moving parts there. And anybody who gets a job early in the season might be able to keep it because it's not like they're overloaded with top quality options.
All right. You guys are some of the best in the industry. Like I said, 2 TGFBI overall winners, and the other 2 gentlemen are both in the top 25 of the historical standings in TGFBI. And the light coming through my office window is getting in my eyes right now, but I can still see how bright you guys shine. Thank you so much for joining me and helping raise money for Mental Health America. I'm going to be unceremoniously kicking you guys out and starting to bring in the next crew little by little. So thank you guys so much. And we are raising a ton of money today for Mental Health America. And a guy who has been raising money himself is Nick Pollock. Nick, you just had PitchCon. How did that go?
Oh, man, that was amazing. And I hope that you beat it today and tomorrow.
That's the goal.
I heard on a podcast that you wanted to raise $1 more than we did at PitchCon.
So what was the final amount?
So happy.
What was the final amount for PitchCon so I can write it down?
I believe it was around $10,300. Let's go with that.
Okay. Our goal is now $10,301.
It's a wonderful goal. I donated this morning. You guys should too. It's a fantastic cause, and I'm just so happy that I get to spend some time with Justin Mason. It is not easy what you're doing. You're actually making it harder than I did because you're involved in every one of these. I got to introduce it and then disappear for a moment. No, not this guy. He's like, I'm going to be here next to a globe all day.
Well, at some point here, actually, in this segment, I will disappear for a little while. Once our good friend Paul Sporer shows up, he's going to take over the hosting duties for me. But right now, it's just you and me.
Hey.
So the other guys have not joined. So
are you serious? Oh man. Well, I did think it was at 2, and then 2 minutes ago I realized, oh no, it's not. But hey, here's Eno.
There he is. The murderous Eno Saris has joined us.
Where's my IPA and my knife?
Yeah, I felt like it was a missed opportunity to not have a broken beer bottle as the weapon of choice.
Yeah, right.
So, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug everything that you do.
Oh, I'm at ENOSARRIS on Twitter, Instagram. I've got an Insta strategy for this year, so it's going to blow up on Instagram. It's just the overlays and some, pitch stuff, whatever. It's not a big deal. And then pitch ranks are up on The Athletic, and I think we've got some good deals. You could try it out for free for a bit. If you like, and subscribe off my pitcher ranks. That's goes to me.
There you go. Definitely do that. And we had your co-host on Rates and Barrels on earlier, and I talked about just everybody should be a part of or subscribe to The Athletic. It's so cheap, and there's just so many writers. It just doesn't make sense if you're not subscribing to The Athletic. So definitely go do that. And of course, you can get the podcast for free, even if you're not a subscriber. So definitely do that. And again, I will say I officially concede that you guys won Podcast of the Year. I wasn't willing to give it up at first. And admit defeat, but I do acknowledge
the fact the legitimacy of the voting process.
I did. I was not willing to concede defeat. I felt like it was rigged.
Oh, come on, we can just clink our hardware, dude. You won. What is it? 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think 2 years ago or something, 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember now, but
there's too many of those things too many trophies up there.
Yeah, it's represented by the globe right there, being Podcast of the Year. So, Nick, remind everybody where you can be reached on social media and then plug all you do.
Oh man, at Pitcher List, come hang out. We have so much that we do at the site, but hey, get PL Plus. You get to hang out with us on Discord and ask all the questions you want. You get an ad-free version of the site. You get to support what we do. I don't know. There's a ton of things. We have 20 podcasts now. They're all amazing. You should listen to them and stuff. And come hang by. I don't know. There's everything for everyone at Pitcher List.
There it is.
Not just pitchers.
Oh yeah, everything. I
Pitcher and
got.
hitter list.
We have 170 staffers just to do hitting content for me, as I do all the pitching.
Wow, I mean that's an impressive list. I can't believe you guys have 170 staffers at this point.
It's wild. It blows my mind. But I mean, yeah, I mean that graphics department that we have editors and we have developers, and just they're all amazing. And I feel so lucky to be able to work with all of them.
What we're going to be talking about today is pitching, because you guys are known for pitching. We're supposed to have Mr. Paul Spohr, but I may have accidentally forgotten to send him the link. So hopefully he will be joining us, and I will be able to turn it over to him and go use the restroom, because that is something I haven't been able to do since I started this almost 4 hours ago.
Oh,
Take us with you.
Yeah, you guys
steal.
Yeah, you guys do not want the full tour of the Mason household. So let's I'll hold off for right now, but I'm not gonna wait for Paul and then our other guest, who I believe is going to be Greg Jewett, who I believe he says he's behind stage. Hold on,
he might be using the older link or something like that. Eno, in the meantime.
There you go.
Who do you think we're not talking about enough right now as a pitcher? Like, I know that you were high on Urquidy. I know I think you're kind of high on Tyler Mahle as well, right? But is there someone? I can't wait. I really hope he gets like the volume in game to actually like showcase it and not get pulled after 4 or something like that. But is there a pitcher we're not talking about enough right now?
I don't know. I love Julio Urias, and he kind of. I think that people are saying that like every Dodger loses innings now. It might be true, but I don't know that is true. And I think it's time to take the kid gloves off with him. And I don't see any sort of flaws with him really. So.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been waiting since like 2015. I feel like for Urias to get his opportunity.
I guess that's a reason to think it might not happen, but I don't know, man. At some point, they got to do it.
Yeah, I really do hope it's this year. He certainly has the talent for it. And says, hey, we got Greg here.
We do. Greg Jewett has joined us. Greg does amazing work with like figuring out the closer situation for us. Remind everybody where you reach on social media, and then plug everything that you do.
It's been a whirlwind of a week, but I do stuff for Fantasy Alarm, and obviously this week I joined Eno and Nando and all the great people over at The Athletic. Nando reached out to me not too long ago to see if I could do that for them. I run a little Coffee and Closers on Substack, which is just like a newsletter kind of format, and then I keep my closer charts that I've been updating even today, and then also, just got announced that I was going to be in Tout Wars. So I did. The only bigger week I think I've had was the day my son was born. So when you start writing for free in 2013 and you're hoping to get 100 followers, it's been a long, strange trip, but a lot of fun.
Congratulations.
So,
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. And I joked on social media that on this panel I'm just going to sit here and be quiet because I have the lowest floor on this group.
Absolutely not.
I don't know. Closers are impossible, dude.
Yeah, we don't know what we're doing with those. Nothing.
Yeah, no. There's a reason I brought you in, because I follow your information for closers. It's very, very important that you're following Greg on Twitter and following all his work, because man, closer this year especially feels like an absolute nightmare. And what I asked you guys to do for this episode is pick some pitching sleepers, some guys that maybe are undervalued, that people can get for cheaper in drafts than what they're going to outperform. And let's start with that closer, because I said 2 starters, 1 closer, and the closing situation is a nightmare. I think DVR on your guys' podcast the other day, said that like there was only like 5 closers that he trusts, and that makes sense. So, who did you come up with as your closer or relief pitcher sleeper?
I a while back read a piece by Jack Moore that suggested that velocity and strikeout rate have a little bit of something to do with new closers. So I tend to gravitate toward the hard throwing guys with a nice strikeout rate. I know that role is really important, but in the case of the Detroit Tigers, they don't have a guy that has the vaunted closer experience. There's no like, oh, we'll just hand the ball to this guy because he's done it before. You could argue Joe Jimenez is that guy, but I think his true talent home run rate might be 2 per 9. And I think that's just too risky in that role. So my long-winded way of saying my closer sleeper is Gregory Soto. Throws 97 plus, hardest thrower in that bullpen. I think he can get the strikeouts. I'm all over Soto, super cheap. I know the better teams give you more save chances, but that bullpen and that staff is improving. And I think that they'll win enough games to get you 20 saves or something.
Are you not worried about Soto being like the stopper, where he's like the best, highest leverage guy? So they kind of use him in that amorphous role. I mean, that's the hardest thing with these people. Want to know who a sleeper is, but it really, until managers tell us how they're going to use somebody, we don't know. It's like, I don't want to call Jordan Hicks a sleeper, but I think he's one of the guys that's being drafted outside the top 10 that has top 10 potential as long as that team gives him the role. I know some people still believe in Giovanni Gallegos, but if they wanted him to be the closer, he would have been the closer last year when there was a clear path, and he wasn't. So that tells me that
they've even said something about Hicks, right? Like, I think they even said something like, if he's healthy this spring, he's got the role.
Derek Gould intimated it, and I also asked Craig Mish because he has ties with the Cardinals organization. He said it's Hicks' role to lose, and the only wild card would be if Alex Reyes does not make the rotation and something does happen to Hicks. So those were the 2 guys he mentioned to me that he would target in that one. I also feel like Anthony Bass is like this year's Brandon Kinsler, even though it's the same team. You feel dirty when you draft them. They're going to give him that role,
dude.
Absolutely.
Rosenthal, he tied for 4th. I mean, his ratios were horrific, and he couldn't strike out anybody, and he was angry about Sierra being used in his negotiations, which you read on The Athletic, which was hilarious to read. So us analytical people can point to those things, but the players don't want to hear it. So those are a couple of guys. And then I know Eno spoke to it the other day on his podcast, but I do like Jonathan Hernandez. I think people are overlooking the velocity uptick in the bullpen, not being a starter. And I think his projections do weigh his past starting role in there. And it kind of depresses him. He's got a very good arsenal. And if they do, and I just read that Texas isn't sure if they're going to go with one closer, according to Woodward, but Leclerc's on shaky ground. And if his command's not there this spring, I think that opens the door for Hernandez and one of the other guys to possibly take over those spots.
Nick, where's your closer sleeper?
I mean, I wanted to give an opportunity to be like, hey, Spore's over here. Like,
oh, no, I'm ignoring
it. Wait. This is 1,000% your fault. If you go click the picture on your Twitter, there's 2 pictures. Right? You would assume that the one on the left is Saturday and the one on the right is Sunday. So I looked at that yesterday, make sure, because I can be late to stuff. I'm kind of a clown, and I own that when I mess up. I'm on the right-hand picture. I'm like, that's Sunday, babe. I'm free to go to Costco. We can do whatever today. So this is 100% on you. I'm here. I'm ready, but this is not my fault. I'm not eating this one.
We were on time. No.
Let's say, are you using the old school excuse? I have a big day going to Bed Bath & Beyond.
Yeah. I quite literally podcasted with you and told you when you were going to be on.
Look at those pictures and tell me that you wouldn't interpret that the one is Saturday and the other one is Sunday. Tell me that you wouldn't interpret it that way.
You know what I will tell you, Spore? I'll tell you that Amir Garrett should not be going at 277 of NFBC ADP.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I don't think that he really should be.
Wait! This is my pick. This is
no. I'm gonna take this. Shouts to Amir.
I don't have anything else.
Amir is a friend. So, shouts to Amir. Love you, dog. But I don't think you got that closer's role. Who do you think is going to close in Cincinnati?
I think it's going to be Amir. Lucas Sims has he's hopeful for opening day with a strained elbow. I feel like
what about Sean
Amir there? Nah, it's Amir.
He's got to show the gas first.
Just saying, he's there. He has capital C closer too. He's done it many a year before. I don't know. I mean, it is good to have Doolittle there. If you're going for Garrett, you got to feel good about having Doolittle there because it gives them a second lefty. That way they're not saving Garrett or using Garrett earlier before the ninth to get some key lefty out. So I do think that certainly helps it. And Lucas Sims, like you said, is kind of hurt. And then there's another pitcher on that team who's pretty good. Do you want to say his name? His last name's Anton. What's his first name?
Hi.
Wait, is this a pronunciation test?
Yes, you call him TJ. It's just TJ.
No,
Of course it is.
of course it is. How? Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
Oh man, the French Canadian in me wants it to be TJ. I mean, that's
Why
awesome.
have I been calling him TJ?
I don't know, but I love it. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite ones. So we're talking. We're talking closer sleepers.
No, I mean we've all made these mistakes,
But it's now that you're saying it, I'm crying.
I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just thought it was funny.
Oh my God.
So we're doing pitcher sleepers.
Oh.
I asked everybody to have two starting pitcher sleepers, one closer. We're doing the closer first. So Paul, you finish out the closers.
So I'm gonna go similar to Nick in that it's a team that's a little bit undecided. It's somebody that people are starting to get in on, but I don't trust Will Smith. So I kind of like Chris Martin in Atlanta. I mean, you look at what he's been doing the last couple of years. He's been excellent. There is a righty bias or left. I guess the bias would be against lefties, but there's bias toward right-handers. They have lefties for days though. So I will say that Will Smith could certainly close there. They got Minter, Matzik. I think even Grant Dayton is still, and even Sean Newcomb. Geez, they really have lefties for days. So that really shouldn't come into play. I just think Chris Martin's better than Will Smith as a pitcher. I mean, 30% strikeout rate the last 2 years, minuscule walk rates forever. He really kind of broke out in 2019. Remember when Chris Martin was traded from Texas? A lot of people probably were like, why are they trading for Chris Martin? Then you look and see his numbers had really jumped up. And he's been excellent since then. So I'm drafting Chris Martin shares and bypassing Will Smith. I don't mind getting into that Atlanta bullpen too, because they're obviously going to be a quality team.
All right, let's talk some starting pitcher sleepers. I'll start with you, Paul, and then I'm going to mute myself and run to the bathroom.
You can stay out. I can finish driving because remember, when we talked, I was supposed to drive the rest of this. So I'll
go. You drive, sir.
Yeah, I'll drive the SP sleepers here. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with Nick. I want your first one, Nick. Your first sleeper SP here. Obviously, sleeper kind of varies, but I think everyone here on this call understands that we're looking for guys that are mid-tier and later. We're not talking about like Tyler Mahle's probably too good to be a sleeper at this point. We're looking a little bit deeper than that. So who's your first one?
Yeah, I'm really touching close to like my SP 100 and beyond at this point. I'm really tempted to keep banging the Caleb Smith drum, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with his teammate Luke Weaver, who had a bit of a 2020 was just not anything we were hoping for. Fastball was getting crushed in the zone. He didn't have the cutter that he had in 2019 that made us enjoy him. He was able to use that cutter to get strikes confidently, and that allowed him to do that four-seam changeup combination effectively. Lost it in 2020. However, there's been talk about him getting rid of that cutter and changing to a full-on slider, which I've heard good things about. And if he has that pitch to get strikes just inside the zone, you've talked about this. Some of the best sliders are the ones that just get strikes consistently. Doesn't need to be this big whiff pitch. If Luke Weaver has that, we can see something close to that 2019. Yes, not the 2.94 ERA, but a 3.5 ERA there with a 25% strikeout rate. And the Diamondbacks will let him go. They don't really have too many options when it comes to depth. I have to think that Luke Weaver will get his opportunities to prove himself again this year. So he might be someone that might actually be shooting at my ranks early in April once he's proven that he has that slider.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that with regards to Weaver getting an opportunity for sure, right? Like what's Arizona? Why wouldn't they have the incentive to give him a shot to see if they can build him back? He's shown flashes of really high quality stuff. So I think Luke Weaver's definitely somebody to keep a close eye on. Let's get your first sleeper here.
I've been such a stuffist for so long, and I've been so stuff forward. This year, actually, I'm a little bit worried about innings. I think that we're going to all have trouble with innings. And so I found myself digging on some late command artists. I did some research that suggested that command is better than stuff at projecting how many innings you pitch per appearance. So I think that these guys will pitch deeper into games and will give you a high floor situation. A guy like JT Brubaker in Pittsburgh. One thing that worries me is he's like a sinker first guy. I know we all hate sinkers, but he still throws the four seam. He's got 2 breaking balls. If the changeup's not as good as it was last year, that's okay. He's still got 4 pitches. He's got good command. And I think with Pittsburgh, he's got that soft landing spot where you put him on your bench and you play him at home at first to see how he's doing and get a little bit of that Pittsburgh love, that park there, and just help goose your innings. He's in the rotation and you know it, and it's not going to cost that much. So.
Yeah,
Brubaker, come on down.
I like the Brubaker pick too. I do think he's somebody who can stabilize nicely. A lot of us play in deeper leagues. Somebody like that you just kind of plug in the back. Maybe use him as a team streamer, which is what I call a guy that I'm taking from my starter to my reserve, as opposed to a true streamer, which is somebody that you start and then cut. I kind of want to keep Brubaker on the team, maybe skip some of those tougher outings, but otherwise keep him in. So Luke Weaver for Nick, JT Brubaker for Eno, and Greg, who's your first one here on the sleeper pitchers?
Well, being forced to cover the KBO this summer when there was no baseball for a little while, there was a lot of pub with Josh Lindblom. And I think he's somebody that, and we never know how many innings the Brewers are going to let a starter go because they do have a quick hook. However, I think the adjusting back to the stateside, he did a lot of work this offseason, refining his arsenal. I think this is going to be one of those situations where maybe a Bowers type thing where you condense down all of those pitches and just focus on a certain group and then let that stuff do the work for you. So we're all going to be looking for strikeouts late. So I think he's somebody that I'm liking more and more, taking a round or 2 above his whatever projected ADP is to make sure I get him to, like you were saying with Brubaker, to stream in and out, not take him and cut him.
Yeah, I really like Lindblom. I liked him coming into last year. I thought I saw some things that keep me encouraged. Obviously, with the short season, a couple bad outings can really tank the numbers, but I'm still bought in on him. I like a lot of that rotation there. Brandon Woodruff and Burns at the top, Lindblom and Hauser there in the middle and back end. Interested by both. Let's kind of snake this. And actually, I guess I got to give one first here. My first one. You know what? I'll go with one that a lot of folks have been talking about, but I like this guy too. So I'll give some love. Maybe if Mikey Ahedo's watching, little Yusei Kikuchi love. I know that, like I said, he's popping up on people's boards, generating a lot of interest, and understandably so. I think the stuff has really been there. And we've seen flashes of the stuff. It's time to kind of bring it together here. He did amp the strikeout rate last year to 24% with that velo gain, and the secondary stuff coming along really cut the home run rate. The big issue last year was really the 47 innings. I think what was more than anything. It was a couple bad starts. I think there were 3 5-run starts, and you can't really overcome that in a 9-start season. So that kind of did Kikuchi's numbers in, but this is where looking at like Sierra can really help you because it's a 4.34 compared to the 5.17 ERA. Now, 4.34 Sierra doesn't really knock your socks off, but in relation to that high ERA, you see that he pitched better. The underlying skills were there for Kikuchi. I think he's settling into his second full year here in the States, and I think he's going to be a nice pitcher to pick up. And obviously, Seattle could also start to kind of get a little bit better too. I don't think they're going to be a contender or anything, but maybe they're not completely getting their butts kicked all the time. Maybe steal a few wins with Kikuchi as well. So I like you say Kikuchi.
I'm fascinated by that one. I think settling in was a great way to put it because he had like the worst command plus of any starter in my things, and I think I'm supposed to say, oh, that means whatever. I actually think that normally that number is good, and in this case, I'm thinking it'll be higher this year. And the reason I think so is because he changed so much about his arsenal last year. He threw harder than ever. He threw a new breaking pitch, and I think he just needs to settle in. Like he needs to have some volume throwing this new arsenal that he's got and throwing as hard as he's got. I mean, I think he's definitely throwing closer to his max, so he's not used to trying to command the ball in that situation. So I have some hope that will improve for sure.
He's still just 30, and a lot of foundational stuff there that could really send Kikuchi to the next level. So I'm just kind of eager to see what 6 months brings this time.
Greg,
instead of just
that was
9
your
starts.
pick, wasn't it? Greg, that was your second pick.
This is great prep for the TGFBI because he sniped me.
My bad, Greg. My bad.
That's all right, man. No,
do you want me? Do you have a backup, or should I go back to Nick and start the rotation over?
I got it.
One aside here, Nick, are you wearing the TGFBI shirt like I am?
Oh no, I'm just.
Oh,
just
see,
red.
is this the equivalent of wearing a concert T-shirt to the concert?
To the concert you're going to? No, I dig that. I do like to roast people that wear the concert shirt. But it's funny that we do that because like you wear, a Tiger shirt to a Tigers game, but if you wear like a Childish Gambino shirt to his concert, you're like, what are you doing? You're such a jerk, dude. It's so funny how we make that distinction. Well, Greg, if you are ready after I sniped you, let's go ahead and start with you and snake this around.
No, do the circle. I'll double
okay,
back.
Nick. Let's start back at you with your second one here.
I mean, I've got two quick ones, so that's all right. Because like you mentioned Hauser quickly, and so in like the Milwaukee rotation, I think Hauser was someone we kind of liked a lot entering 2020. A common theme with me is if we can throw away 2020, we might be able to find a lot of gems that were really good in 2019. 2019, Hauser had a 124 whip, 25% strikeout rate, and a 3.72 ERA across 111 innings, like a significant sample. And we'd love to have that sample entering this year with 2020. Sure. And I understand he really took a step back last year, was not there with his fastball. It had the same swing strike rate metrics in the zone rate, but he got just pummeled more often. And he wasn't able to get as many whiffs on that slider and command that in the zone. But I do think that there is something still there with Hauser that maybe you don't necessarily need to trust him right away. But you should be watching Hauser and see if he actually is able to get those strikeout numbers back up to 25% from about the 18% he had last year. See if he can command that slider effectively and not get beat so badly on his four-seamer. He was like the mini Brandon Woodruff back in the day. We were at this time last year. That's how we were talking about Hauser. I don't think that skill set is just completely gone. The other one is Alec Mills because like he gets the Pirates twice to start the year.
JT Brubaker clone.
Yeah. And the better part of for Mills versus Brubaker is that Brubaker can't go against the Pirates. But Mills can.
That's true.
Mills can. And he does it twice to start the year. I've been saying that a lot of like I see Mills even in my 12 teamers. Last pick, Alec Mills.
Wrigley.
I will just
Cold Wrigley.
I will
bad Pirates team.
Take that for my first 2 weeks of production while I'm trying to figure out who actually will be those upside guys I take through the year. And maybe I just like Mills at the end of it. Give yourself that opportunity of getting early production and then making those decisions later. Mills is that guy.
Yeah, I like that. I like both those call outs there. Like I said, I mentioned Hauser. I'm still buying in on him. The price has come down, so that's great. And Alec Mills, I think, is he's kind of getting the Kyle Hendricks treatment to the extreme, right? Hendricks has a floor that now he still gets some respect within where he's drafted, but probably still not enough relative to what he's done. Mills is kind of a baby version of that right now, where it's like people aren't going to take it seriously. He throws really slowly. But there is a lot of stuff to like, and we see that this profile can work. So I think Mills is definitely an interesting one. Even if you just use him to start there, get those 2 Pittsburgh starts and kind of assess it after that.
Yep.
I mean, those later picks anyway should be geared with an eye toward that first 2 to 3 week period anyway, right? You shouldn't be looking to keep I don't know, where's Mills going, like 22nd round? I mean, I don't think you need to be planning to keep anybody after pick 15 for the whole season. I think you can start to plan about, okay, I'm keeping this guy for these 3 weeks here, and then I'll assess it from there. So I like that call out.
Mills,
your second.
Mills
go ahead.
501 in NFBC right now. 501.
Oh wow, literally like just completely dirt cheap. Yeah, that's free. That's free. And so literally, if you just got the 2 Pittsburgh starts, I think he'd be worth that. Absolutely. There could be even more there too. Great call out with Mills. Who's your second one?
I really like Mills because I can transition from him. And one of the things that is cool about Mills, I think, is he represents a little bit of the modern, the newest wave of pitching development, which I think that you see the Indians are the best at it, but the Mariners are trying to copy it. And I think you're seeing in the Cubs rotation this year, which is command is cheaper in the marketplace than stuff. Yep. What you do is you go get a command artist, and then you try and shape all his pitches and shape them in the way that we know works. Basically, like coach his stuff up, get him in gas camp, try to get him throwing harder. But you started with such great command that's how you get Shane Bieber, right? You get Shane Bieber because he has awesome command at 88. He has a little bit less command at 94, but he's throwing 94 now, right? And because he started with so much command, it works that he's like not at his best command wise, I think. So Mills does spin mirroring with his fastball and his breaking ball. which means just that the spin is exactly the same, but just the opposite. And he also uses seam shifted wake on his sinker. So that's like two of the most advanced sort of physical things that we're learning about right now with regards to pitch design. And they just brought this guy up that nobody's ever heard of, who throws 89, and they were like, he has good command and seam shifted wake and spin mirroring. Boom, let's see how he does. And he cost us nothing, So let's give him a shot. So I think that you can use that a little bit in fantasy. It's a little bit hard to figure out exactly how to use these in its infancy and like year one of like knowing this stuff exists, basically. But Spencer Turnbull to me is a guy who throws a little bit harder than Mills, but also has good command, has a wide arsenal, so he can tweak. He can have a tweak here or there, and also his fastball is seam shifted wake, which just means that it has deception. It uses the grip rather than the spin axis to create movement. And so, if you're a hitter, you might see the spin axis and see this is unexpected movement. Basically, the spin axis on his four seam and his two seam are very similar, and yet the movement is not at all similar. So he can kind of throw two pitch combos that are with the four seam and the two seam that can be deceptive. So I just think that he's deceptive. He's a little bit better than it seems. And I'm willing to. You know what? I just took him as my 8th pitcher in the DC draft and hold on NFBC. And I feel good about it. He was like, there was a little bit of a shelf after that where you really, after Turnbull, to me, you're going into the much more like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
Type
So
sleepers.
he kind of represented a cutoff where you still had some confidence in him to deliver a certain floor there. I like Turnbull too. I've not quit him at all. It's funny. I still remember talking about Turnbull a couple years ago. I randomly just kind of brought him up at AFL after I'd written him up for the Forecaster. And I think it was Vlad Sedler who's like, did you just mention Spencer Turnbull? Like he was somebody that he had been looking at. And anytime Vlad Sedler like agrees with a player that you're talking about, you feel really good about it. So I was like, wait, you're in on him too? Great. I'm a genius. I love this.
I'm a genius. Shower me with praise.
Exactly. Okay, Greg, you have had time to recover from the snipe. Who have you come up with?
All right. Well, we'll do a young and an old one. So an old reliable veteran, I think J.A. Happ is really motivated going up to Minnesota, and we're all going to be chasing innings. Why not chase innings from a veteran on a good team with a very good defense? Now that with Anderson Simmons there, he enhances all of the guys that generate ground balls. Once he made some tweaks, he started throwing his fastball a little more last year. His last 36.2 innings, he had a 36-5 K to BB. I'm kind of surprised the Yankees let him walk away with how volatile that staff is setting up. So you're getting, there's no like high ceiling when you draft J.A. Happ, but if you get a handful of wins with some very good starts and you just avoid a couple of the landmines that might pop up, like you might not want to start him in Chicago, but he's one of those guys where it doesn't move the needle, but you like him. I'm curious about Griffin Canning as well. I heard Eno speak about him and some other people. Last year, I think the elbow scared a lot of us off. His Sierra wasn't terrific, but I think there's enough there where he could take a step forward this year, and the Angels need him too. So that's somebody, if I was looking for a better ceiling at that spot, like I'm trying to decide between the two, I might zig to him, just try and maybe I can get some more strikeouts, things of that nature. But I don't think you can sneeze at Happ finishing the year with 36 strikeouts his last 36.2 innings. It's, we get tired of those old boring veterans, but they help fill up the stat sheet.
Let me tag on Shoemaker there too. Same exact sort of deal there. Being a veteran with Minnesota, having the Andrelton Simmons, Josh Donaldson combo there on the left side for a splitter guy who likes to get ground balls. I'll throw him in too. He's a little bit more uncertain than Happ because of his health profile, but he's also cheaper too. So you can go really cheap with the pair there. You said you also had a young guy to back up that Happ pick. Who's the second guy?
Oh, I said Canning.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear that.
Okay, no worries.
So Griffin Canning, yeah. I mean, the talent is there. I want to go to Nick on Canning real quick because I feel like you were in on him early, but you've kind of backed off, right?
Well, it's because it's a
Tell
PRP
Greg why
injection.
his pick sucks. Let's hear it.
No. I think
It's
exactly.
the
You just
Angels.
texted me that this was the
Angels
worst
and
pick that you've
elbows.
ever heard, right? I'm just kidding.
No, Greg, this is great. I'm with you essentially on the upside of Griffin Canning is real, right? I remember actually talking about him having the same kind of makeup of Bieber when it comes to approach of four seamers around the same velocity and a really good slider and curveball. And I think that still can be a major element for Canning. It's just a question of the PRP injection that I just do not trust to be enough to stabilize Canning through the year.
That's fair.
And it
They
might
tried
create inconsistency through the season, which means as like a fantasy manager, I don't know if I'm going to be able to feel confident at any point in Griffin Canning, which
There
has
you
me
have
a
it.
little
Take Hap.
worried, but the ceiling is there.
Yeah,
Well, the Angels also have like a terrible history with this. They keep trying to avoid surgery, and I think I don't know who avoided surgery. I feel like none of them did.
No, heavy Garrett Richard vibes there when Griffin Canning went under for PRP. Right down to the fact that as a young pitcher that I really liked, that I was really devastated to hear was hurt. Thought he was going to get surgery, and then they go PRP. So they're just going to extend that time because it seems inevitable, right? How often does PRP end up being the only thing as opposed to just a preamble to the inevitable Tommy John? So that's fair.
Greg is right. I mean, he could have like a month and a half right now of just like cruising and just getting strikeouts left and right. And that's
he's picked 307. So if you're fine paying that for, what are you looking at there? That's a 21st round pick. If you're fine, like, hey, maybe I only get 6 weeks here. Canning isn't bad, and I love the strikeout. I love the talent. And Nick, I was giving you a hard time there about backing off on him. It was all health related. It was never the talent that really pushed you away from him. But yeah, that's definitely somebody that we like there with Griffin Canning. For my last one, I will go with. Let's make this fun. You know what? I'm just biting everybody's stuff. I bit Kikuchi off of Hedo. I'm going to bite Michael Lorenzen off Michael Simeone because he got me fully in on it. And I'm going to give full credit. So I'm not quite biting. I'm more propping up somebody else's pick, but I'm totally in on it. And he turned me on to him pretty quickly when he wrote about him on Fangraphs. And I really think that this could work out. And it's not a 1-to-1, so I don't want to say this and have people be like, start picking apart the comparison here. But I get a little bit of a CJ Wilson vibe of when he's transitioned from reliever to starter. And everyone was like, what? This is so weird. He's like 29, 30 years old going into the rotation. What's he going to be able to do? I think Lorenzen's talent profile is significantly better. And yet we're not giving him a lot of attention here. Moving into the rotation there for Cincinnati, plus what they've been able to do, right? We talk about the other Ohio team, Cleveland, and what they're able to do with pitching. I think Cincinnati is showing a strong track record. So I'm really bought in on this Lorenzen hype here. He throws super hard, even if he loses a tick or tick and a half off of it to go to the rotation. I don't think that's going to be a problem at 94 and a half, 95. I think he's got the stuff to have a deep enough arsenal to turn the lineup over a couple times. We know he's a freak athlete. We know he cares about the game as far as, trying to better himself via analytics and everything. So I think Lorenzen could really be a find. The only question, of course, would be the innings, but he is also 28 or age 29 season that I don't think they have to baby him here with this. And that's where I go back to the CJ Wilson thing. He instantly went up to a full starter's workload because he was already, a fully formed player that they didn't have to baby with his arm. So I really like the Lorenzen pick. Michael Simeone put me on that. So I want to give love to him for that one.
He was my backup pick. If you were struggling, then I was just going to start talking about Michael Lorenzen. Guess what? After the Cubs get the Pirates, the Reds get the Pirates.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Lorenzen is the number 5, so he should start the season against the Pirates. There you go.
That's perfect. Wow, those Reds pitchers going up against the Pirates this year, that's not going to be very fair. They ended up not trading anybody, so.
Right, and also, overall, 14.5% swing strike rate last year, like across all of his pitches. Lorenzen had that. He's throwing 95 up to like 99 or something crazy. Like, it's pretty nuts. Like, this is the stuff that we talk about normally, and we just kind of brush it aside because it's Lorenzen, and we've known him as a different entity for so long.
Yep.
But
he's also a new pitch guy, right? Like last year, was the breaking ball significantly different? I think he. I talked to him about that.
Slider really jumped. Yep.
Yeah, the slider. I talked to him about his slider before, and he was like, "The difference between my slider and my cutter is I hold this a little bit second longer, and on the slider I go like this.
That's
and wild. I go like this.
That is so wild, the small difference.
When I throw that hard, all I can think about is throwing hard.
Yeah, not this little subtle change. No, this is my slider. This is my cutter. Get it right, okay? This slider. cutter, slider, cutter.
Oh my god.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the talent's there to be something really strong, even if it's only for 120 innings. I think Lorenzen could be a G. So we've kind of run the gamut here between old and young with the pitchers here. A lot of upside potential. This is where you can really make your draft if you can spike a guy like this here that can really carry you, even if it's for a couple months. That can certainly help you get to the next free agent period and everything. Not everything has to be a 6-month play. And Nick, I know you've been super hot on that this year with your schedule stuff. I love that. And I know Justin and I have talked about that on the show for years too. Last year, he kind of found Tyler Mahle in an interesting way where it paid off more than he expected, because his plan was to get him because he was going to be a follower. Well, he didn't end up being a follower. He ended up being a starter, but that ended up working anyway. It's like when you do a math problem, you get the right answer, but you show the wrong work. Hey, you still got the right answer. So it totally worked out there.
This is why I never showed my work in school. Right?
That's what I'm saying.
I just got the right answer.
Teacher, don't worry about where I got the answer from. Is it correct? It's correct, right?
It's right, and you were watching me do the test, so I wasn't cheating. It was the correct answer. So we only have a few minutes left. Want to give away some prizes, especially because Nick and Eno both donated a prize. So Eno, you're donating a curated box of beer. So talk about what you're going to do for that.
Send out a couple of those. One of the coolest things about one of the only cool things about the pandemic has been that in California,
one of the cool things about the pandemic, a new podcast by Eno Saris.
The only cool thing has been that they've relaxed rules on shipping beer in California. Now you can get beer shipped directly from California breweries, but you have to be in California. So I've been getting shipments of boxes all this time. I would love to send out a box, and I will put together a California box of beer that just has the best. And I'll take some direction. You can tell me a little bit about what you like, and I'll try to. One of the things I love doing, and people have seen this before, is like handing someone a beer that I think that they specifically will like. Mm-hmm. And I remember. I gave Derek Hardy, was like, I'm not a beer guy. And I was like, I'm going to try. What do you like? And he's like, I'm a bourbon guy. So I gave him this like bourbon barrel aged Deschutes beer. And he was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And I was like,
awesome. Yes. You do that every year in AFL too. It's like, you get to know everybody. Like, I brought you a beer. And they're like, what? And you give them something like, wow, this is amazing. It's so good. By the way, my girlfriend Jen had a quick question. She wanted to know what your sandwich is on the shirt here. What sandwich have you made here? Do you know?
I don't know. I know that someone photoshopped in, so I don't know if that the one, but I did a sandwich where I did oxtail on top of sweet potato with fried pickles on top.
My mouth is watering right now. Jesus.
All right, so the box of curated beer is going to Justin Compton. So I will forward your information over Eno, and you guys can arrange how that is going to work. Thank you so much, Eno. Nick, you're giving away a month of Pitcher List Plus.
Yes.
So talk about everything that goes involved with that.
Come hang out with us in our Discord. Essentially, with PL Plus, you get an ad-free version of the site. It looks way better. You also get 10% off all of our merch. And you get to hang out in our Discord. It's 700 plus members, all unified by our love for baseball. And we have 1,000 channels. You can talk about your favorite food and show pictures of your pets and talk.
I can
about
chime
everything.
in. It's a great Discord. It really is. And if you're a night owl like me, they have the picture list after it's dark. Plaid there. That people always hanging out there. They play other game they get a group that plays Among Us on Mondays. All sorts of great things there. Yeah. What's that? Yeah, trivia on Tuesdays. And during the season, it's even better. People just watching games. So whoever wins this is probably going to want to subscribe the rest of the year after they get the taste for the free month. I will say that.
Well, the winner. Awesome. Thank you, Spore.
Smart.
Who's got it? Who's joining our community, Justin?
The original winner, I randomized, and it was Alex Fast. So I'm eliminating him from it. And it is now Curtis Jones. So
I know Curtis. Yeah, let's go.
He's a
Welcome,
great
Curtis. You're
person.
gonna love it here.
Yeah, and a really smart player already, and now he's getting all the benefits of Pitcherless Plus. So I will not be joining any leagues with Curtis this year.
We don't want to make him better. That's a terrible idea.
He worked me in the cut line last year. Like, I had a really good team, and his was a top 10 team in the overall all year. I never even had a chance at catching him. It was just a bummer for me, but good for him. He's a really good player. So I will. Nope, Shar, you didn't win nothing. Sorry.
I didn't win nothing.
Nothing.
I give you $5. I didn't win nothing.
Nope. Real quick before I kick you guys all out of here, say where you can be reached on social media and then plug your work. Nick, go.
At Pitcherless, just come to pitcherless.com.
There you go. Bye, Nick. Eno, remind everybody where you reach on social media.
I like getting rid of them after.
Yep.
Yeah, at Eno Saris. Subscribe to The Athletic off of my pitcher rankings. They are my pinned tweet.
There you go. Bye, Eno. All right, Greg, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
At GJEWETT9, specialize in closers, but cover about just anything with Fantasy Alarm, closers only for The Athletic. And thank you guys, and for the kind words at the intro, Justin. I appreciate it. Thank you, boys.
Definitely, man. You take care, and I will be following your closer stuff all year round. Bye, Greg. And Paul, of course, where can you be reached, and what are you working on?
On Twitter, at Spore, on twitch.tv/Spore as well. You know, I'm doing Sleeper in the Bus pod with this beautiful gentleman right here, fangraphs.com or fantasy.fangraphs.com. We're getting everything taken care of. That's fantastic. I got this one on still. And Justin could wrap me out and say that I was wearing this yesterday, but hey, ain't no shame in my game. I've been wearing this.
You did. I wasn't going to out you.
Honestly, it's only been on for 24 hours, 23 and a half hours. So I haven't even worn it like a full day yet because I got it right before our pod yesterday. But anyway, kick me off. Thank you so much. Sorry I was late, but got here as quickly as I could. Love you, man. You're doing great work. I'll continue to watch all weekend.
And I'll be dropping the podcast you did with me and my wife at some point later today. Obviously a little bit busy, but that is coming out, and definitely should go listen to that on the TGFBI feed.
I cannot wait. See you, bud.
Bye. All right, so that was a fantastic panel that I got to step away from and go to the bathroom, so I really appreciate Paul taking over some of the hosting duties for me, and I'm going to be adding in some people right now for our next panel. Joining me is Brant Chesser. Brant, thank you for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Enjoyed that last segment, and thank you for all your work with TGFBI. And continue to donate people, great prizes, and a great cause.
There you go. And let people know where you can reach on social media, and then plug all your work.
I'm just at Brant Chesser, and I write the weekly NL Flukes for Baseball HQ, and then also write some starting pitcher matchups on the side every week.
There you go. And also joining us is Derek Rhodes. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Justin. I'm really excited to be here. That was a great last segment. I feel intimidated.
I totally missed it. I was like, I'm gonna go shove some food in my stomach, and walk around and use the restroom. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen. If you miss segments all throughout the weekend, you can go back and listen. It'll be on the TGFBI feed in podcast form, or you can go over to the YouTube channel and check it out there. So definitely do that. Also, Alex Chamberlain, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Justin. Hey, how's it going?
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug everything you do.
I'm on Twitter at Dolph Haldhagen. Like always, I'm not going to spell it. You just got to figure out how to spell it yourself. And I'm on Fangraphs or Rotographs with Justin, and I do the pitch leaderboard, which is somewhere on Tableau.
There you go. You have to go look at that pitch leaderboard. It's amazing. It's really, really great work. So definitely go check that out. Also joining us, Russell Withers. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. Remind everybody where you can be reached on social media, and then plug what you do.
So I am on Twitter at Armchair Roto, and I've got a little startup website, armchairroto.com, where I just talk fantasy, player analysis, strategy, kind of whatever I'm feeling at the time.
There you go. And joining us again is Mike Carter, because apparently I scheduled him for 2 segments.
I never say no.
Yeah, no, I was like, wait, why is Mike back? And then I looked at my sheet. I was like, well, I'm an idiot.
I wasn't gonna tell you that he
was on twice. I was hoping you wouldn't notice. So
no, you got to change the hat. If you change the hat, I wouldn't have noticed. See, there you go.
It's the old school Pittsburgh Pirates hat, man. Bought at PNC Park about 3 years ago. So, hi guys, Mike Carter, MDRC 0508. I write about bullpens for Roto Fanatic. It's a labor of love and intensity, and you guys all have much greater voices than I do on this. So I'm going to really sit back and listen to you guys. Lots of really thorough people here, and a pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you so much for having me again.
Of course. I love you, Mike. It's great to have you on. So no shame in coming back again twice. It means you had fun the first time, right? So
absolutely. Wait, once I get past the nerves, I do okay.
There we go. So what we're doing today, of course, is raising money for Mental Health America. At this point, let's see. We have raised almost $3,400, $3,392 for Mental Health America. It's fantastic. We are trying to beat last year's total, which was about $6,000. For every $1,000 raised, I'll give a spot away in TGFBI. All those spots will be given away at the end of the weekend. You don't have to be present to win. I'll email you. Don't worry. But the real goal is beating Nick Pollock. It's beating Pitcher List, who put on a fantastic event last weekend. And he told me in the last segment that they raised about $10,300. So $10,301 is the goal. Nick does amazing work over at pitcherlist.com, and their 170 million writers and podcasters they have over there. We appreciate all he did last weekend, but we're here to one-up him for sure. And I know he's listening in the background, so this is great. So we're going to be yes, you can donate by donating via PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or Venmo at Justin Salinger. There's a little ticker at the bottom if you're watching live, so if you forget what I just said, you can kind of reference it there. And every dollar you donate gets you a raffle ticket in to win some of these great prizes. We've already given away quite a few amazing prizes. There's much, much more that's going to be going on throughout this segment and the whole weekend. So definitely stick around, donate, and help us raise money for a really great cause. We're going to be talking about some bounce back or bust guys. So, we've already talked a little bit about guys in earlier segments that had, huge 2020s and the small samples go along with it. But that doesn't, or that applies to like the guys who struggled, the guys who kind of disappointed us in our fantasy seasons. So let's start with kind of one of the big names, which was Christian Yelich, man. I mean, people were taking him first overall, second overall last year, and he disappointed people. People did not get what they paid for. So I'll start with you on this one, Brant. Do you think that Yelich bounces back to the guy that we used to know?
Yes, I'll qualify. I think he does bounce back, but I don't know if the batting average comes back to 300 with that sharp K percentage jump. And then he claims the lack of video, like a bunch of other players, a couple others in this segment we'll talk about. So it's hard to say how much they impacted him, but just watching him at the plate, he looked lost at times, just flailing at the ball. So I buy a bounce back, but I'm not going back to where he was before. So I'll split the difference. But I'd take him in a few drafts at the back in the first round. I just wouldn't make sure I have too many.
Yeah, I just took him 9th overall in my online championship qualifier draft that I just started actually this morning. A really poor time to start a draft when you're going to be on a live stream for 9 straight hours. But, I do what I got to do, right? So, Alex, are you buying back in on a Yelich bounce back?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I noticed something that I didn't notice before, which was that in 2019 after he broke out. So in 2018 he broke out. 2019 was really his kind of like his high point, but pitchers really stopped pitching him in the zone, which I hadn't noticed before, and I think he was probably due for a bit of a strikeout rate spike in 2019, but didn't really see it. So I think we might have been blindsided by that a little bit. But in 2020, he just stopped swinging. His swing rate dropped by like 10 percentage points, and that to me, like, that's not a skills thing. That seems like a guy who lost confidence, frankly, like just not knowing what to do at the plate. So his contact quality metrics look good. Like, I think he's still hitting the snot out of the ball. I think it's really just a matter of him getting that confidence back. And I'm reluctant to ascribe narratives to anything, but I just can't believe that he just basically stopped swinging last year. And that just seems like a confidence thing. But I do think that maybe the strikeout rate hovers closer to like 25%, because if pitchers just keep avoiding him, he's not going to have good pitches to hit anyway. So I think maybe 300 batting average days are over. Maybe it's like 290. That's still really good. But, you know, he's not going to be a number one overall unless pitchers stop fearing him, which they won't.
Russell, are you buying back in on Yelich?
Yeah, you know, I heard Patrick Davitt on the previous panel talking about being risk averse, and I'm very much like him. So I don't have many shares of any of these players, but I did acquire Christian Yelich in a dynasty league that I won last year that I'm kind of pushing all in to try to win again. Yeah, I'm back in on Yelich more than a lot of the other players. I think Alex just kind of touched on this. You know, he had the highest hard hit rate of his career. His barrel rate was still good. He had the highest average exit velocity of his career and a decent max exit velocity. So the underlying power metrics were still there. So that bodes well to have a bounce back. You know, I attribute some of his performance last year to the knee. He hurt his knee and maybe hadn't fully recovered. And even then, he grinded out pretty much an entire season. And even playing hurt, if you kind of extrapolate what he did last year, he still gave you a lot of value. It would extrapolate out to kind of a 30-12-ish kind of season. So if you use that as a baseline, and if he kind of returns to some of the things he's been in the past, yeah, he's absolutely the best guy on this list to bounce back and provide really great value.
What about you, Mike? Are you buying back in?
Yeah, I think so, and I'll tell you why. I think it's a lot like marriage. You know, it's about managing expectations, right? When I was Christian Yelich's age, I was a prime candidate. Now that I'm in my middle 40s, it's not so hot anymore. It's not great, right? So if you go into it with the right expectation, I think, of thinking, you know, the 30 home runs will probably return, the 25 stolen bases probably will not. I agree with what Brant said about the average not returning, but I really do think that, you know, this was a guy that got off to like a 1-for-27 start, I think. And it just never recovered. He just never looked comfortable, never looked right. So I think if we manage expectations, the underlying metrics kind of support a bounce back. I don't know if he'll get to the levels that he was before, but I think he's still a really good player, somebody that I would definitely be okay taking at the end of a first round. He's the fifth outfielder going off the board in a lot of places. So I think that it could work for me.
What about you, Derek?
I think I'm in. The one thing that I thought Yelich compared to the rest of the guys on this list is like his price is not deflated. I don't feel like it's as deflated as the rest of these players. Now, some of that's because it's the first round. So, I mean, you know, so 8, you know, you drop 8 spots or you drop from the number 1 spot to the number 15 spot. Like, yeah, that's, you know, that only is 14 spots, but it's a lot. But like, I think for a guy where everyone is kind of saying, yeah, we think he'll be good, but not as good as he was in 2019. I think it's interesting that he's still going at the back end of the first round, especially if the average isn't coming back and if the steals aren't coming back to where they were in 2019. I don't know. It sounds a little bit more like a second round player, you know, like mid-second round player than somebody in the first, you know, in the first round. But in general, I agree. I had written down what Alex said, just like a guy, you know, the swing rate being down, and that was down in the zone and out of the zone. Like, to me, just says like, you know, it was down equally both. Like, he wasn't a guy who is like, you know, not being able to read pitches. He just didn't seem comfortable, and it just seems like he never got there. So, you know, I echo a lot of the other sentiments the other guys have said, but I do think it's interesting for a player that I think we've kind of said it multiple times, like he's not going to be as good as he was. I think he's still being drafted pretty aggressively.
He is, but I think that's largely due to the fact that like he's got first overall player upside, right? And so I think that's part of the reason.
Does he still have that? If we're saying the steals aren't there and the average aren't there, or isn't coming back, then I'm not sure that he could be the first overall, you know, like player anymore. Maybe I'm overrating those stats, but like if you're gonna compare him to these guys who we think comfortably feel like, hey, these guys are going to be, you know, 300 plus hitters, and we think that Yelich's ceiling is 300, and maybe that's a little low. I don't know. I'm just wondering like if his new ceiling isn't lower than the first overall player.
It might be, but are we really going to make that determination based on 60 games? I mean, that's the hard part is, you know, you might want to take the shot. It's hard to do before the end of the first round. And for some people, it's going to be the second round, which means you're not getting them, which is fine. There's other players there if you prefer, if you're drafting the back end of that first round, you can go for Trevor Story. You could go for Jose Ramirez. You can take a pitcher. There's plenty of guys there that can do, something similar, maybe have the safer floor at this point. But I believe in the talent still. And, I'm willing to overlook 2020 because it was such a weird year. All right, let's move on over to the next guy. And that is JD Martinez, another one of these guys that really relied on the video, didn't have it last year. Supposedly they're going to have it in some form this year. So, Derek, are you back in on JD Martinez?
At a significant enough discount, yes. And he is a guy who's going at a pretty good discount so far in the leagues I've been in. But I am a little concerned that he's not coming back. The difference between JD and some of the other guys on this list is he's going into his age 34 season. He is, if you look, and I like to look at rolling max exit velocity, rolling launch angles, see what changes. And starting in 2019, actually the end of 2019, he started to see a decline in his rolling max exit velocity, which carried into 2020, which makes me wonder, number one, maybe there's something else going on. I don't want to overvalue because neither one of those is large. I mean, it was like August into September in 2019, and then just the a few months here. But it was enough. It was almost 4 miles per hour in 2020 from what it was in 2018 and 2019. That's a pretty significant decline. Now, he's a guy who hits the ball really hard. So, he kind of has some cushion where other players don't. But I worry, at a guy that age, that's just not coming back. And if that's not coming back, and some of his other trends, I think his fly ball or his rolling launch angle had kind of continued to creep up. So he's hitting more fly balls. And at some point, if you have a decline in max exit velo and a decline and an increase in your launch angle, that means more fly balls that aren't being hit as hard. That's not a good combination for a guy at his age with his skills.
What about you, Mike? Are you buying back in on Martinez?
Yes, I feel like we are fickle lovers in fantasy baseball world. What Derek says is spot on, but I think the one thing that we got to remember is that, this is a guy that has been a consistent 300 hitter, 30 plus home run guy for the last 3 or 4 years. Small sample size be damned last year, although it does tell us some information that we can't ignore. However, if you're drafting him in the 7th or 8th round, I'm willing to take that gamble at this point. I was in the Roto Fanatic mock in February, and I think I got him in the 7th round, and I was thrilled to get him there. So I think you bake in that price and the potential volatility, but I'm willing to bank on a rebound based on his history.
All right. What about you there, Russell? You going back to the well on JD?
No, I'm out. Age plus career worst power metrics across the board. I understand I'm not really out on anybody as long as the price is right. But I look at where he is being drafted. ADP currently over the last month is 99, just after Charlie Blackmon. I'm taking Charlie Blackmon over him all day. Let's see who the next outfielder is. Eddie Rosario. I might even be taking Eddie Rosario over him. So I'm just going to pass. I'm worried that the drop off is real and permanent, and the price isn't such that I'm willing to buy back in and see if I can hit that jackpot.
What about you, Alex? Are you buying back in?
Yeah, I mean, just tentatively. I mean, I echo kind of Derek's sentiment about age being a concern. I do think if you're someone who bets on skills, he has some of the best bat to ball skills combined with power. He's a truly elite hitter, and so I feel like his specific skill set could defeat age if we're talking about that, and maybe that not for much longer, perhaps. But I think some of those power metrics declining is correlating with him hitting too many pop-ups. Like, you're not going to hit a lot of hard pop-ups. So if he can correct that issue, if he can stop hitting pop-ups, which is contributing to his lower BABIP, contributing to his lesser power metrics, I think we could see a full rebound that also his underlying metrics will support. I think everything will shift positively if we do see that correction. But again, like, if it's a video thing, great. And if it's not a video thing, if it's truly an age thing, and it's kind of like this is the beginning of the end, then we're going to be floundering if we draft him at 100. But I will pick up a few shares because he has second or third round hitter upside. So if we're talking about guys who can make that bounce back, there's a big profit margin to be had there, much greater than Yelich's, frankly, if I had to pick. So I think I would rather gamble on JD, have a base already established, and then kind of take a chance on someone in the 7th round rather than trying to spike like a possible number 1 overall guy in the 1st round and have that not work out, especially from what I've seen and some of those things being outside of Yelich's control. So,
all right, Brant, what are your thoughts?
Some great points. Like Derek pointed out, just in 2019, like his barrel percentage is still good, 11%, but it started in 2019. So I wonder too about age and even before the video claims. I find myself, I do think he will bounce back. The power is there, like Alex saying. I think it'll carry over. He's got it. He's still good. I just worry about. I'm taking other people around there or building like roster construction. It just doesn't seem to fit around pick 100 for me. Maybe that's my blind spot, but I've just passed over JD a couple times and looked at him and realized like, just not for me.
All right. I think that's fair. Let's move on to the next guy because he was considered kind of a unicorn, right, for the longest time. And there were people like, oh, Javi Baez, he can't keep doing what he's doing where he's striking out, swinging outside the zone, but continuing to put up these great numbers. And then last year, the wheels kind of just fell off, right? So the question is, can he get those wheels back on and return to being kind of a stud in the fantasy game? Or is this just the sign of the decline for him or kind of the chickens coming home to roost there, Russell?
Yeah, I don't want to keep being the wet blanket here. I'm not so much out on Javi Baez as I've never really been in. I'm just not a big fan of the high strikeout, low walk profile. So he's never really been a guy that I've targeted and drafted. And coming off a season like last season, I just stay out.
What about you there, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's a really brilliant take on it. I mean, I think, living in Chicago, I see this guy play every day. And at the end of the year last year, he was hitting 203 and batting 7th in a very depleted lineup. He couldn't hit a curveball right now with a telephone pole. It doesn't appear, unless he makes some significant adjustments. I think he's going to really continue to struggle. There are probably 10 other shortstops that I'd rather have that provide me a safety blanket that I don't get with Javi Baez. And so unless he's severely discounted, which he's not getting as discounted as I would think he would be based on what happened last year, I'm probably out on him.
What about you, Derek?
I've been in on Javi a little bit. What I would say is I don't want to on just this 2 months say like, well, this is who I thought he was, and now I've got 2 months of evidence saying this is who he is, and like so I'm almost like actively trying to avoid doing that, even though he's not a guy I'm necessarily always in on because I do worry about the profile some. But I guess I don't have a ton of reasons to be in. Like I don't have like, any great insight where it's like, man, this is exactly what I want to see. And, but I have found myself in because I feel like with the profile that he has, I think the risk is more baked in now than it has been in years past. And that makes me a little more interested. And he's still hitting the ball hard. So it's just hard to imagine at 29 that he's just, this is it. Now this is who he is. So I'm kind of a little blindly buying back in or buying in for the first time, I guess.
So Brant, do you think he can get that unicorn horn back on there and return back to being the Javi Baez that won people fantasy leagues, or are you avoiding this?
I'm in between. I got him on one team, I think. But yeah, just the career history of the low walk that Russell mentioned, right? Low walk, low contact. It's just not really enticing. He misses the ball or he slugs it. Seems like the either or fallacy, will you? But it seems like what he does. Also agree with Derek. like we shouldn't be too harsh on him. Right? He's another one of those video guys who claims that that he missed some of the video impact. So I'm not buying 30 homers again, but I think he could be a mid-20s guy, right? But he's with a maybe league average batting average. I mean, he's still going to give you the high Ks, but maybe he bounces back with a little video help.
What about you, Alex? Do you think he can rebound? Especially, I mean, there's a chance he gets traded. I think this is the last year of his contract, and Chicago is talking about, or well, it seems like Chicago wants to jettison some of these, contract year guys off their team if they struggle out of the gate. So what are your thoughts, Alex?
I'm not going to think too critically on the trade thing, but I think Derek kind of echoed what my points were going to be exactly, which is I've actually never drafted Baez in any league ever, of him being in the league for 7 years. But this is probably the most acceptable that his price has ever been, given the risk inherent to his profile. Now that he's not really running as much, I think maybe he's like capped out at 12 steals and probably 30 homers. I feel like sometimes this is a good example of us losing the forest for the trees in terms of like a StatCast thing, or in terms of like small sample thing. This guy's a career 333 BABIP. Nothing about his underlying profile has changed all that much. He did hit more pop-ups, but like that's kind of the hazard of selecting him is he's swinging at everything and he's making some wild contact regardless of what's happening. I don't think the 262 BABIP that happened in 2020 is even remotely close to his true talent level at age 28, actually, Derek, not even 29. So he's only 28. So giving him more credit than
that's my bad.
He was. No, it's all good. But it's like he's not that old. Like he's not even close to really hitting his peak or going past that. I think he still has all of his traits that he's had previously. They're all still intact, is what I'm trying to say, very uneloquently. But I do think that like, I'm still not that interested, but this is the most interested I'll ever be, because this is probably the cheapest he's going to be until he actually starts to experience some true decline. But I think 2020 for him specifically is an aberration.
And I haven't gotten him in a lot of drafts, or any drafts actually, and that's saying a lot because I have had a ton of drafts. That being said, like I'm not out depending on the price in individual drafts, because I mean this is a guy with elite hand speed, and that hasn't necessarily gone away. I do think that maybe a little bit of 2020 flukiness occurred, but I'm also not like getting every share of him that I can. So it tells you I'm not super confident it's going to come completely back, because what we did see last year was the floor, and I'm scared that that's where he could end up residing. That being said, if you like that risk reward profile, that's not a bad spot to take it. At least you're not taking it in the second or third round like we've had to in previous years. What we're doing today is raising money for Mental Health America. Every dollar donated is being donated to them. So you can donate via PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or on Venmo at Justin Salinger. At this point, we have raised $36.99.68. So we are almost at $3,700. I want to give away some prizes right now, so that way people are encouraged to continue to donate. And two guys on this panel, they donated prizes. So Brant, you're gonna donate a Springer Swatch, which I don't even know what that is. So explain.
Just a baseball card is jersey swatch on it, but I thought you're a Springer fan, so let's get a Springer Swatch, right? You drink the bathwater. Let's go.
There you go, baby. Drink that bathwater. Unfortunately for me, I'm not eligible to win, so that's just a little bit of a bummer. But I do love the George Springer bathwater. And let's see, Richard Zito, congratulations. I will connect you with Brent, and you guys can figure out how to get that done. And then I believe, Russell, you're donating a card as well, right?
Yeah. So I've got let's see. It's a Devin Williams, everyone's favorite rookie of the year. It's an autograph refractor, numbered to 75. These are going on eBay for like $110. That's a pretty sweet card. So I thought I'd throw it up for the cause.
There you go. And Matthew Weiner, you have won. Congratulations. I will connect you with Derek. And he just donated like in the last 10 minutes. So don't think that if like you haven't donated already, you're going to miss out, unless you're listening to this like, on Monday. like then obviously you've missed out. Though, if you continue to donate after like Podapalooza's over, if we reach the threshold, the $1,000 thresholds that I'm doing for TGFBI, I'll keep adding TGFBI spots. So if you're listening to this, next week because you couldn't watch live, and you're like, oh man, I missed out on all the prizes. TGFBI spots for every $1,000 we raise. I'm going to give away a TGFBI spot next year. We've already got 3. I want to give away as many as I can. We raise $100,000. I'll put 100 extra people in TGFBI next year. I don't think that's going to happen. I just want to beat Pitcher List, who raised $10,000 last weekend for Feeding America, which is fantastic. And bravo to Nick Pollock and all the guys over at Pitcher List for doing that. But we want to beat them. So, but I wanted to make sure we got those plugs in. Get those raffle prizes in. Let's get back and talk to some more guys that are bounce backs or busts. And one of the guys who was going like second round last year had a disappointing year in Gleyber Torres. So my question to you there, Derek, is: do you think that Gleyber Torres has a bounce back?
Boy, I am not in. I am out. I think it's not that I don't think he could be good. I'd like to see some more before I'm willing to believe it. He's at a 3-year trend of increasing his ground ball percentage. That is not the right direction to be moving in, especially for a guy who's his exit velocity is not, it's not, and these are kind of some of the first things I look at. It's not elite by any stretch. So this is a guy who, that's not what I want to see. I mean, he's still in a great lineup. So, obviously that's great. But I'm not in, 2020 to me seems like it, not that far out of the realm of his possibilities. It doesn't seem that much of an outlier. And so I'm just not, I'm not in.
All right there, Brant. Are you back in on Gleyber Torres?
I'm just looking at, I haven't yet, but even though his expected home run per fly ball per HQ last year is 10%, it was lower. His overall home run per fly ball is higher, like around 18%. So I got to bet a little bit. But once again, obviously I haven't put my money where my mouth is. So he's not on any of my teams. So I'm skipping shortstop, I guess, at that point where Baez and Torres are going currently. But yeah, I think the power bounces back a little.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part with shortstop, right, is it's so deep at the top. Like, the elite tiers are so deep that often when we get to picks like Torres and Baez, we've already rostered one. And do we really want to roster that position or go for a pitcher or go for a different position player? So, like, I totally understand. Like, being like, not out on someone doesn't mean you're necessarily going to end up with them either. Alex, what are your thoughts on Gleyber Torres for this year?
I don't know, man. He's like very it was odd. It was a weird year because he swung less, he saw fewer pitches in the zone, he struck out less than he ever had before. He didn't necessarily make more contact.
Walked a lot more.
Walked a lot more. Contact management, or I'm sorry, not management, but his contact quality was still pretty good. Launch angle wasn't where it should be, but like, again, in what for him it was like 6 weeks worth of games. Am I going to read into that? Yes, but no. He's kind of in a position where like I actually don't know how I should be valuing him, and accordingly, I'm not going to draft him. Like, if I'm wrong on him by avoiding him, then that's fine. There's so many other players at that juncture that I can take where I'm not going to lose sleep if Gleyber bounces back. And I think it's acceptable to admit to yourself that you don't know how to evaluate a player in a given season. And Gleyber is like a headliner of that category for me. Like, I'm looking at his profile and I don't know what to make of it. Like, it could go either way. I think based on his youth and his pedigree, I have to imagine that betting on him here is probably going to be right more times than it's not. But I'm also risk averse, so he's off the table for me.
Well, is he off the table for you, Russell?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be just as muddled as Alex's. quick digression here. I keep wanting to call Alex Dolph. And I've heard you on like a half dozen podcasts talk about where that came from. But I just want to say I feel like I'm in a special little club because my roommates and I in college were huge Homestar Runner fans, and I got the reference immediately. All right, so
yes,
that out of the way. Gleyber Torres, I mean, career worst slugging, ISO, home run per fly ball, barrel rate, average exit velocity, career best on base, walks, strikeout rate, contact, and max exit velocity. I mean, the guy's sending mixed signals all over the place. With that said, he's kind of like the anti-Javi Baez for me. Good walk rate, acceptable strikeout rate. They're going in drafts kind of right around the same spot. So gun to the head, I'm taking Gleyber. But truth be told, I'm probably taking neither of them and drafting Brandon Lau right there.
Mm-hmm.
So take that for what it's worth.
There you go. Mike Carter, give me your thoughts on Torres.
Brilliant insight, guys. I the only thing I would add to what these guys are saying, who are esteemed people in this industry, I think is, Torres over Baez for me as well, as Russell said. But the other thing is Torres is going to be facing a much better Baltimore team this year than he was in 2019. As you might recall, he feasted on Baltimore in 19. It seemed like he had a home run every game that they were playing against Baltimore. I think he's 25 home runs. Batting average might be up a little bit higher. He's not going to really give you steals. And I agreed with what you said earlier, Justin. I'd like to think that I'd have shortstop already settled at this point. And so I probably would pass on him and go somewhere else.
Yancey Eaton is shouting out the amount of handsome on this panel. I mean, he's wearing sunglasses in that picture, and I don't know if they're prescription or not. But
Yancey is aware that my students at the high school that I work at they call me White Shrek. So I think Yancey might really be off on this one. I don't know.
Maybe Yancey's into facial hair because there's some good facial hair on this.
There's lots of beards.
Yeah,
a lot of beards.
So maybe that's what it is. Maybe he just likes to look at the facial hair. So we've got about, I think, 10 minutes left or so left in this segment, if I can tell time, and I believe I can. And so I don't want to run out of time and not give you guys an ample opportunity to remind people where you can reach on social media and then plug what you do. So, Derek, remind everybody where you are on social media and then plug everything you do.
Yeah, I am Derek Rhodes. I'm on Twitter. It's at DRHOA3, Dr. HOA3. I post a lot about best ball and injury stuff. I've got a website with some tools out there if you're interested, especially some injury tools that are out there. That's jagfantasysports.com. Yeah.
And I believe we're going to be giving away some of those best ball sheets that you've come up with later on in Podapolooza. If you're playing best ball, you need to have these sheets. It's like they are just so useful. They break it down for you, and he's got different ones for different systems. So if you're playing on in the best ball 10s or you're playing on fan tracks, he's got you covered. So if you don't win, make sure you go over to Derek and get those. They're not expensive and they're totally worth it, especially if you're going to play in 74,000 best ball leagues like Derek does. Brant, remind everybody where you can reach on social media.
I'm just at Brant Chesser on Twitter, and it's mostly I'm not as cool as Alex, right? Alex has got all the stats and the picture boards, which I love. I'm just usually posting articles about NL facts, flukes, or as I'm saying, daily matchups. I did write a cut line article for Baseball HQ last month, but check it out. Thanks for Justin for the great work today.
Of course. Thank you for coming on and sharing some of that knowledge. Love Baseball HQ. I've said it a few times today. I'm a first-year subscriber of Baseball HQ this year, and I'm absolutely loving everything you guys do over there. Alex, remind everybody where you can be reached on social media and then plug what you got going on.
Yeah, Brant, don't belittle yourself, man.
Right.
Baseball HQ rules, dude. BHQ's awesome. I'm on Twitter at Dolph Haldhagen, and I write at Rotographs, and I maintain the pitch leaderboard somewhere.
Yes, you do, somewhere. If you can find it, it is a very useful tool, definitely. And go and check out the podcast that Alex did with me and my wife on the TGFBI feed. It was one of the first episodes of the season, and still one of my favorites so far that we've done, even though I think we're 13 or 14 deep now. He just broke down statistics in such a digestible way. It was, I literally was like jazz for like an hour that night, just like so excited about how well that went. And so, Alex, I do appreciate you coming on there. Definitely go check out all of his work and follow him on Twitter. It may be hard to find because you don't know how to spell it, but if you do find it, it is worth following Alex. Russell, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
Yeah, on Twitter at armchairroto, and the website is armchairroto.com. Lately, I've been writing some articles about 50-round draft and holds, which is what I've been doing way too much of. I don't want to say that too loud because my wife's in the next room. But so I've been writing about kind of deep draft targets and strategy lately. And as the season gets rolling, I'll kind of shift into. I have some ideas for some regular in-season articles I'm going to start up pretty soon.
All right, and Mike, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you're working on.
Russell, just be sure to manage expectations with your wife, like I said earlier with Yelich, right? You're all good, buddy.
Well, I keep trying to get her to listen to Justin's podcast with Danielle, but 20 years of watching me play fantasy, it's just not going to happen at this point. She's not going with me.
I gotcha. Hey, I'm Mike, like Justin said, at MDRC0508 on Twitter. I write about bullpens for Roto Fanatic. I also write as a fun site for me on 9 Know It All, just writing more narrative type of baseball stuff. Derek's tool is amazing. If you haven't gotten it, I got it. Even I idiotically figured out how to use it. I'm no tech master. I barely can turn on my own computer. I just want to say to all of you guys, thanks for having me. Justin, this is an amazing thing that you're putting on. As a lot of you guys know, I work at a therapeutic day school as a school principal, but I work with kids that have social and emotional disorders. And I can tell you that mental health is something that is super important, especially in the COVID-19 world. We've seen so many kids struggling. We've lost kids to suicide, overdose. This is a really, really big thing. It's actually the scourge of our society, I would argue, in 2021 in America. Get off my soapbox now, but thank you so much for what you're doing. I so appreciate being here. A year ago, I wasn't even on Twitter. And so to be with you guys and in this type of panel is an amazing thing for me. It's like I'm kind of in awe. So thank you.
You have the distinct honor of being the first person ever to do 2 segments on the same Podapolooza because I don't know how to schedule properly. Apparently.
No, it's totally cool. I told my wife, I said, this takes precedence today. Forget about the household chores. Maybe later or tomorrow. I'm sure when I get home, there will be nobody there. I'll probably be punished for the rest of the weekend, but that's okay.
That is okay. We have about 4 minutes left. We're going to do some speed rounds. I'm going to throw out a player that disappointed in 2020, and you're going to say they're bouncing back or they're not bouncing back. And let's start with Jose Altuve there, Mike.
Partial bounce back, ADP of 100, I think. He's 31, knee problems, career 311 hitter. I think if you have tempered expectations and don't think that he's going to steal 25 bases again, you might get a guy that's going to hit 300 with 20 to 25 home runs. I hope. That might be a little bit optimistic, but
there you go. Russell, are you back on the Altuve train?
I'm an Astros fan, so bang, bang, back on the Altuve train all the way back. I'll just leave it totally unscientific.
There you go. I like that. Alex, are you back on Altuve?
He was my big bust for 2020, and I hit it, so I'm staying out.
There you go. Brant, it looks like you're the same way. You're not buying back in on Altuve?
I mean, I don't mind if you pay the cost for him, what he's costing right now, but I don't think he's going back to 30 homers.
Yeah.
All right. Derek, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also out. 3 straight years with leg injuries that required IL stints for a guy who relies on his legs. I'm out.
All right, Austin Meadows. He had a huge breakout and then disappointed last year. Derek, you buying back in?
I think so. Yeah, I think I'm back in. Last year's. He has a lot of reasons for last year to be weird. I still like a lot of what we see in his hit profile. I'm back in.
What about you, Brent? You back in on Meadows?
I'm in on Meadows. I would agree with Derek. Yeah.
What about you, Alex?
I heard rumors of him being like a platoon hitter, and I don't really see the splits issue, so I think I'm back in.
All right, Russell. What about you?
Yeah, I'm back in. I'm giving him a pass. He had COVID. That it affects everybody differently. So I'm just going to pretend like last season didn't happen.
There you go. Mike, are you back in?
I'm in. He also struggled with that oblique issue at the end of the year, too. I think it was just a wash for him. I'm back in.
All right. What about Chris Paddock there, Mike?
Not unless he gets a curveball.
All right, needs a curveball. Russell, do you need a curveball or are you back in?
I was never in. He's fine, but where he's going, you can have Greinke, Musgrove, Urias, or McCullers. I'm taking all 4 of those guys over him.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Alex, do you feel the same way?
I thought I was back in, and then I found out that maybe his fastball is actually really bad. And I thought I liked him, and now I'm like very unsure. So I think I might be out until he proves me otherwise.
All right, Brant, are you out too?
That's how I am for now. Living here in San Diego, same thing. They keep talking about, can he get the ride back on his fastball? Until I see it, I need to see it in 21. Maybe I'm back in 22, but I need to see it.
All right, what about you, Derek?
I'm out.
Oh, man, you guys are killing me here.
I think it's worth mentioning that he's like aware of his spin efficiency issues, but I think maybe his fastball was also still bad in 2019.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even a spin efficiency thing. So I think that's maybe my greater point in all of this, Justin.
Yeah, that hurts me. I'm buying back in on Chris Paddock, especially considering how much lower he's going this year than he was in 2020. I think it's a gamble worth the upside, especially if you've already got an anchor or 2 to your rotation. SP3 for a guy who's put up SP1 numbers before, and he's healthy. It's not an injury thing. Like, yeah, I think I'm buying back in on the upside shot. You guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to kick you all out of here. You've been fantastic. This was a great panel. Mike, I'm assuming I will see you in another panel later on because, again, I don't know how to schedule.
I might just click on a button at 7 o'clock tonight and see what the hell happens.
You know what? You never know. Every once in a while, someone forgets to show up, and I might have an opening. So.
Hey, call me. I'm around. I've already alienated my family for the weekend, so
hey,
I'm
you
all
know
in.
what? That is the Justin Mason way. Alienate your family as much as possible. So have a good one, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see it first pitch.
All right. So knocking people out left and right. And I will be bringing in a new crew to talk some more fantasy baseball. We have Michael Govier. Michael, welcome to the show.
What up?
Remind everybody where you can be reached on social media and plug everything you do, because you do a lot.
Blah, 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 blah. Yes, I do. Hey, it's Rico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We do a couple pods a week, but normally it's just every Wednesday. Right here, rotofanatic.com. I'm part owner of that website, part of the Rotofanatic Podcast Network. And just as importantly for today's show, I also do the First Day Pod, which is a addiction and mental health podcast that I do with my sweet and beautiful Canadian girlfriend, Leanne Hello. We do that every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So check that out if you're into mental health and addiction and want to learn more about it.
And my wife is going to be a guest on there pretty soon.
That is absolutely
right?
correct. This Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's going to come. She's already done an episode. She's going to do another episode. So if you like Danielle trolling me, she's going to do something a bit more positive than troll me and be on your First Day Pod, which is a fantastic pod about mental health and addiction. And obviously we're raising money today for mental health. And so I think it goes hand in hand. So I'm glad you mentioned it. Also joining us today is Chuck Johnson. Chuck, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Remind everybody where you can be reached on social media and then plug everything you're doing.
Well, right now I haven't been doing too much just because of the fact that I've been working a lot and buying a house and fixing a lot. But I'm normally found at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. I'm on Twitter at thatguy1681. But lately I've just been kind of contributing, like when Andrea and Lenny kind of send me a message asking me, La Russa hire, things like that, more with the White Sox, because I'm more on the south side, even though I'm in Northwest Indiana.
There you go. Also joining us as well is Daniel Rotter. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Good to be on.
Of course, it's always great to see your face. Daniel is one of my guys over Friends for Fantasy Benefits, so I'm glad we got a few of us representing. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then talk about what you do.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter at DROT_6. Like Justin said, I've been helping him out with Friends with Fantasy Benefits for the past couple of years. I've been doing baseball, and I've also been doing the basketball podcast over there as well. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Chuck. We've been in a Dynasty League together for the past 5 years, and this is our first time talking. So great to see you, Chuck.
Yeah, first time we actually even get to see each other. First time just even having a conversation. Normally it's all behind text.
See, and that's amazing. That's like the beauty of things like this. And like, I'm sure I've told this story before, but like my co-owner at Friends of Fantasy Benefits, Mike Warner and Matt Thompson, we didn't actually meet each other in person until like years after we started that company. I met Mike at Tout Wars, I think in 2018 after, it was 2 years after. And then I met Matt at First Pitch Arizona, I think 3 years after. And so like we owned a company together and had not met. So I love things like this where people actually, they know each other, but they haven't actually gotten a chance to sit face to face. Also joining us is Andrew Gould. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug everything you do.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Andrew Gould4, Gould. And also you can find my writing at Fantasy Pros, where I'll do a weekly waiver wire column throughout the season, as long as preseason work. And I'm the DFS manager at Pitcher List, so really excited to rolling out stuff there for DFS and betting this year.
Awesome. And then Marty Tallman is here as well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for having me. Gentlemen, very nice to meet all of you. Michael, I know you, Mr. Gobier, as you do everything, and I was on your pod a few days ago. So, but yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Marty_Tallman. I write for Motor City Bengals, which is a fan-sided affiliated site. We focus on the Detroit Tigers. Most of my articles are only on fantasy, but blending in the Detroit Tigers as of right now. The actual team itself isn't that good, so we look to our fantasy life. But thank you.
All right.
Detroit, what up, though?
There we go. And then Yancey, Yancey says in the chat right there, he's coming for your ass in TGFBI. So I'm assuming you guys are in the same league together. Don't worry, Yancey's not that great. He is. He's actually like top 30 in all time in historical standing. So you've got a strike there. But
love you, Yancey.
Yeah,
Kisses.
exactly. So what we're going to be talking about on this section of Podapolooza are some hitting busts. I asked you each to pick 3 hitters you're going to be fading for this season. So Marty, I'll start with you. Give me a hitter you're fading and why.
Absolutely. When I got this topic, I was like, we're going to talk about something so positive we don't want. But yeah, so for me, it's a Bo Bichette. So his ADP right now is 25.5. So somewhere around the end of the second round, that's where he's going. And it's less about his tools. I mean, we all know what he can do. But for me, I don't like playing the extrapolation game. Okay. So as a rule of thumb, I'm not going to invest a second round pick in a player based on what he may be able to do because of what he almost did before, possibly down the road. So I want to see at least for a full season. I want to see how he adapts, not only to 162 games, but to pitchers adapting to him, see how he's able to make his adjustments throughout the full season and everything like that. Which brings me to my next point, which is his batting average. So is his batting average sustainable? As of now, he's batting, I think it's around 307. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned of 2 reasons. One, he just swings way too often, right? He's swinging at 41% of pitches outside of the strike zone, and he has a 39% chase rate. So with the league average being around 28, that scares me. And then you add in his walk rate, which last year, I know it's a small sample, but it was 3.9%, which is abysmal. And then you add, for his career, it's 5.6, which is pretty poor. And he's a young guy, but even in the 2 years he's been around, I mean, we've seen injuries, right? He's broke his hand. He had a concussion. I think he missed a full month last year because of a knee injury. And so all of those things combined, with his ADP being so high, it's too much of an investment, especially when what's going to be important to me is getting another elite pitcher, whether it's Castillo, Flaherty, Woodruff. And then just waiting another round to get Tim Anderson, or waiting, to pick 70 to get Javi Baez. So I'm out on Bo Bichette.
All right, that's going to be a controversial one. So I'm glad you let us off and started this one, because there are going to be people screaming at you in the comment section. You can comment live on any of the platforms that we're on right now. And if I have time, I'll either ask guys questions or I'll throw the comments on the screen. Michael, please tell me your first bust.
I guess I'll give you a bust, but I also really want to take part of my time, and I don't care because there's no rules and you can't control me, Justin.
This is true.
Mental health. So mental health is very, very important to me. I'm working on my own master's degree, so I could be actively involved as a mental health counselor. And it just has been a huge part of my life. And a lot of people are afraid to talk to people, especially, you would think some people would be more willing to talk to people because they're strangers, but there's a lot of people who are afraid to talk to people they don't know that are counselors because they don't understand their lifestyle, or they've also been injured or hurt in many different verbal and emotional ways. So you just don't know who needs help and who can not have access to it as well. It's a huge problem. It's a massive problem. So this year, what Justin's doing with Podapolooza and donating these funds for mental health is so important, especially with COVID going on. There's more people that are restricted and unable to get access. So I really want to stress that, yes, we're talking fantasy baseball, and Justin will get his fill. He will get his fill of fantasy baseball talk for these whole 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. He'll probably never want to talk about it again, but he loves it so much. He's that sick that he will. He'll keep talking about it. That's not, that's his thing. He might need help. He probably does need help in his own way, but in a serious manner, I just want to take that moment to say it's very, very important. And if you want a hitter to fade real quick, then I would say Jose Abreu. I've been off him since the season started, the preseason started, and I just don't want anything to do with him. And COVID is not the reason. It's just the latest reason why I'm not interested in Jose Abreu. There, I'm done.
All right. Chuck, give me your first fade.
Picking one out is the hard part with this, because honestly, I want to fade out everybody on the Nationals other than Juan Soto. And that's mainly just because, well, I honestly see that team taking such a huge dip. That's going to be such a huge competitive, division. I feel they're not going to be the ones that really come out on top, because you're seeing Scherzer drop, you're seeing Strasburg drop. We're going to see the offense start to drop. Soto's the only one I really trust on that, and I don't know if I want to. So if I'm picking out the one, I would have to say Trey Turner, because I don't think I'd want to give up a first-round pick for somebody that I want to fade the whole team.
All right. Daniel, go ahead and give me your first fade.
All right, so my first fade has played probably the best baseball of anyone in the last real Major League Baseball games we played. I am fading Corey Seager this year, and here's why. So you already know that Corey Seager is not going to contribute much of anything, if anything at all, in steals, which is something that a lot of the guys going around him at shortstop will do. And I mean, the power is going to be there, but if you're picking him, his ADP since February 1st is 36. So I'm thinking he's got to hit like at least 30 homers to return that value with all those steals that you're losing with some of the other guys around him. And it just kind of feels like his value is very inflated because of the recency bias, because he had such a phenomenal postseason. But I'm looking at Tim Anderson. His ADP is 42 over that time span. He's elite for batting average, which Corey Seager, he's okay, but he's not in the elite category for that. And the power upside, I wouldn't say is that much different. And you know that he's going to get you a lot of steals. So I just like a lot of the other guys on the board around that area more than Corey Seager.
I'm actually, I'm okay with that. It's been well documented, my feud with Corey Seager over the years. So I am on board. Though I do believe in the skills. I just can't believe in the health. That's been my biggest knock on him. So if you're willing to take that risk where he's going, I guess, but I'm not. Andrew, what's your first fade?
Yeah, so my pick is kind of tame compared to everyone else's so far, but I'm fading Teoscar Hernandez. Last year we all said we're gonna not put too much stock into this short in 2020, and now we all are. He's a career 245 hitter who batted 289 with no real contact changes. He had a 66.2% contact rate, a 30.4% K rate last year. So this seems to me a clear case of someone who just had a hot streak and the season ended before it could level out. If it was a full regular season, probably would have faded and we wouldn't be talking about him the way we are now. It's a top 100 pick with a 78 NFBC ADP in February. And you can argue that the projections are already accounting for this, and someone drafting him doesn't want the average, just wants the power and speed. But my worry is a prolonged slump could not only put him down in the lineup, but could even lose him playing time in that Stat Blue Jays lineup, where Randall Grichuk may not even have a regular job. So with all those factors, there's so many hitters at that spot I'd rather have who are going later. Nick Castellanos, Charlie Blackmon, Nelson Cruz always goes way too late. JD Martinez is in the same boat now. And if I want more of a power speed upside play, then I'm going to take a mulligan on Yohan Moncada or Austin Meadows to bounce back from a year played by COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. And Teoscar was a guy that I was, touting at this time last year as a sleeper, and now I can't pay full freight. Like I don't trust the batting average to not regress, considering how much he strikes out. So I'm with you. It's hard for me to fade a guy that I've loved in the past, but it's all about price, right? What are you having to pay to get those guys on your roster? Andrew, give me your second guy.
All right, so maybe he's not as much of a bust as someone I don't want to pay for, but Brian Hayes, he was great when he debuted, but it was 95 plate appearances, and I just can't buy the price he's going for on that, especially when there's so many other guys at that around that range I'd rather have. Gio Urshela, Justin Turner. Like, this is a bizarro world where the Pittsburgh Pirate, who was called up since September, is getting all the hype, and the starters on the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers are just getting overlooked somehow. He never hit more than 10 home runs in a minor league season. And now we're going for a 143 NFBC ADP in February. I think he's a good player, a good dynasty value for sure, but I'm just not buying at this rate in a redraft right now.
Oh, that hurts my soul there, Andrew. That's I was already on 7 of my teams. I'm highly invested. I believe in the talent. So I'm going to disagree with you on that one, but we'll switch over to Daniel and let him give his second guy he's fading.
All right, so my second fade is a guy that I know some people are super fond of, and some people are going to be here with me, but it's Cavan Biggio. And I know that everyone loves his 3-positional eligibility, which has been clearly driving up his ADP, which is up to 63 since February 1st on NFC. I mean, he hasn't really shown like a consistent hit tool at all. He hit 234 his only full season in the majors in 2019. He was at 250 last year, which was a better improvement. But still, with a pick that high, I mean, how much better is Cavan Biggio really going to up it with that? And I know a lot of people have been saying that with the new balls, that some of those fly balls that got out as home runs last year, they're suspected. Didn't you write that article, Justin, maybe? That
I did not.
You didn't? Okay, I think I saw it on Fangraphs that the new ball is going to probably affect Cavan Biggio a lot, is what they were suspecting. And then it just seems like, he'll run a little. He probably won't run a lot. The power upside's okay, but not great. It's hard to see him getting more than like 25 homers, in my opinion, if all breaks right. And then I'm just looking at some of the guys farther down the board. I mean, Jeff McNeil's at 85. He's elite for average, and he'll sprinkle in a couple home runs. He'll probably score a decent amount of runs. And then I know they're on the last guys that were on here, they were talking about Jose Altuve as a potential bounce back guy. But I feel like at that value, Jose Altuve's ADP is 96. So that's almost 35 picks lower than Cavan for second base. And I just like those values more.
I totally get that. I will give a shout out to the boys over at the High Stakes Heat podcast. They just did a podcast, came out, I think, yesterday, and mentioned Biggio, and he's one of the few lefties in that lineup. And the park they're going to be playing in Dunedin, in Florida this year, because they can't play in Toronto, has a very short right center field fence. So that may help a little bit, in terms of, softening the blow of a deadened ball. But I do kind of agree. He seems a little bit overrated. I think part of it is that Toronto lineup, and then I think part of it is the multi-positional eligibility. I mean, he's eligible at like 3 different spots in NFBC and more spots in other places. So I can totally get fading him for guys who maybe have a longer track record or feel a little bit safer later on. Chuck, what are your thoughts there on your next guy?
My next one is going to make a Detroit fan sitting in here really happy. I think Eloy is not going to have that good of a year. I'm kind of on the same page with Abreu. I see him kind of fading a little bit. I don't know about Moncada, how he's going to react, because I think he just got over having, COVID also. So I could see the White Sox having a really down year, and I can't see them really relying on like an Anderson to carry that offense.
All right, Michael Govier, give me another guy.
Yeah, that was literally my guy. I had
go.
it all lined up. I had our data monster, which is at rotofanatic.com. You can use. The data monster does not like Eloy when it comes to swinging outside the zone. He's very bad at it, and it's not a good look for him. So let me go in another direction then. Oh, by the way, Mike the Mouth's in the chat. Mike, hey, you don't know shit. Shut your mouth, sit down, and be quiet. And just remember that, okay? I'm in charge here right now. Just remember that. All right. This is live, guys. This is happening in real time. So I have a third guy, but let's go with who have I not drafted recently? Boy, that's tough. This is something. All right. It's Randy Rosarina because I haven't drafted him at all, and I'm just scared. I'm afraid of the price. It's too high. It's gotten too intense, and he had a great playoff run. It was beautiful. A beautiful playoff run. One for the ages. A record-breaking playoff run with home runs. It was ridiculous. And he's an elite talent. I really believe in his ability. I just don't want to pay that type of price. So if we're talking about hitters we're going to fade, it's got to be him because I just have to see more. It's kind of the old Toby, bat flip crazy. He likes to see it before he believes it. And in this case with Randy, I'm not always a see it before I believe it guy. I can look for the little tea leaves floating in the air to tell me, hey, this is probably going to be the guy, and I have confidence in that. But with Randy, I don't. There's been many guys who had great playoff runs before, but they were at different points in their career, so it was easy to kind of fade them the next year. Like, he's not 30. He's not some 33-year-old who's, wow, it's a rebirth. It's not like that, like a Cody Ross did once upon a time. This is very different. So I'm confused, and I'd rather just go in a different direction, especially when he's going around 54, 55, 56. He's been in the 50s nonstop overall, and I'll go with another pitcher like Corbin Burns or another hitter even like Aaron Judge. I know that's crazy. Aaron Judge I would take, or Gleyber Torres, or even Kirsten Hura. So I rather avoid Randy at his current price.
Wow. I mean, you obviously do not listen to my advice because I've already talked about on Podapolooza today his elite ability to recognize pitches out of a pitcher's hand, and I completely believe in. This is why I got him at the 4-5 turn in our tag team matchup, even though you were at the other end of the turn. So
I woke up at like 1 o'clock, man. I'm sorry. All right, I'm just getting going here.
I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning to freezing cold, and finally I can be in a t-shirt. So
you poor bastard. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I live in California, so I can't complain too much, right? Marty, give me your next guy.
Yes, sir. And speaking of Toby, he obviously he's not going to like this one, but JT Realmuto. He's one of my biggest busts this year. ADP's at 37.9, so it's roughly mid-third round. And it starts with the philosophy that I just don't typically invest in catchers until the mid to later rounds, and it's going to be based on the volatility of the position. So many different injuries can arise. You're going to expect them to at least miss some time, but especially when you start entering your 30s. So this year, when JT does start the 2021 season, he will be 30 years old, and it's just that's a big price to pay. And so piggybacking off that is the fact as of now, right, there's no DH in the NL. So if he is going to get wore down, as all catchers do, especially when they start to get a little bit older. 2019, he had a surgery to clean up his meniscus in his right knee. They said there's no long-term effects, but he's a catcher. He's in that position so much. He has a broken thumb right now as we speak. So they're not going to be able to hide him. He's going to have to play, unless they put him at first, but I don't know if he's there yet, but catcher. So he's going to have to be a catcher, all throughout the season. So now this is like a big snowball effect. So because of all those reasons, now we look at steals. And so I don't think he's going to get anywhere near the double-digit steals, 8, 9, 10. With everything he's going to have to be going through with all the stuff on his back, I don't see him returning his value with steals. And then where does that leave us now then? So with the people that are still available, Tim Anderson, Whit Merrifield, I love the high batting average, the steals, maybe 20 home runs, that they're going to give you. Other batters, Anthony Rendon, Nolan Arenado, Alex Bregman, they're all still on the board at that time. So I would rather definitely invest in those and then wait on a catcher. And catchers that are catching my eye a little bit later, Wilson Contreras, 132 ADP. I'm buying into Austin Nola. I had him last year. I liked what I saw. He's at 173, so that's still pretty good. And then, if we're feeling a little, we kind of avoided catcher, which I really like to do. I'm cool with getting Molina, close to 283, and then Wilson Ramos at 339.
Yeah, I actually don't have a problem with it. It's not that I don't think that Realmuto is a good player. I just have a hard time paying for a catcher that early, especially because outside of pitchers, no position gets hurt more than catchers, and Real Muto's already hurt. Now, it seems like he might be ready for opening day. They might try to protect it with a glove or something, but this is just indicative of what happens to catchers. They get banged up, concussions, injuries, collisions of the plate, or just, an errant ball, missing your glove and hitting somewhere and you're hurt. So, I understand why people do go for him, because if he is the Real Muto of old, he is much better than the rest of the pool. It's just not going to be on my team, at least not very often, unless maybe this injury drops him considerably in a draft or something. That's the only way I think I could end up with JT Real Muto myself. What we're doing today, we're raising money for Mental Health America, a fantastic organization that does a lot of good. And I really, really appreciate everybody doing their part and donating just an absolute ton of money so far. This Podapolooza, we have already raised over $3,700, and I just saw another donation from our good friend Michael Govier, and so that's actually going to bring us up over $3,800. And so really, really appreciate everybody, including Michael, but everybody who's donating. Let's give away a prize, because it is that time of the segment of, I keep wanting to call it a podcast, Podapolooza, whatever it is. And so right now we're going to be giving away I think it's a baseball card. Marty, you're the one who donated, so why don't you explain what it is?
Yes, sir. Yeah, exactly. So this little guy here, you may have heard of him, Spencer Torkelson. He's going to hold the key to my heart for the next 10 years. So this is the 2020 Onyx Vintage Extended Blue Ink Autographed Spencer Torkelson baseball card. It's going for about $125, $130 on eBay. I think, when he comes up and he hits 50 home runs for us and bats 300, it's going to go up even more. So here it is. I'm really happy. Justin, thanks again for having us on. This is an amazing thing that you're doing, and I'm so glad that I could give this out and raffle it off, hopefully to a Tigers fan.
Well, it's not going to a Tigers fan, but it's going to an awesome guy in the industry. Howard Bender just won it. Howard Bender, he's also donating some cool prizes as well that'll be given away later on, and he'll be on Podapolooza. Congratulations, Howard. And you never know, some of the people in the industry that have won, that have donated, have then re-gifted it, and we get to give it away again. So it could end up in another person's hand if for some reason Howard decides he does not want to collect on it. But I will connect you with Howard at some point, so that way you can get that figured out and get that over to him. That is a really cool card. So I don't know much about cards, but we're going to have a panel at some point this weekend with some guys in the industry, including our good friend John, MLB Moving Average, is going to come on and explain cards to me and like how you collect them, how you trade them. I have no idea. I haven't collected a baseball card since I was a kid. So, and obviously with the gray hair in my beard, and the lack of hair on my head, that that's been a long time away. So,
yes.
Let's, you can continue to donate. We're going to be giving away prizes all weekend long. It's going to be a blast. And like I said, we're raising money for Mental Health America, a fantastic organization. For every $1 you donate, you get a raffle ticket into this kind of prize pool that we're giving away. You can donate by PayPaling me at justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com or hitting up my Venmo at Justin Salinger. And I do appreciate everybody. $3,800 already. We're not even through day one. We've got a second day. We raised over $6,000 last year. I want to beat that this year. And actually, I want to beat Pitcher List, who raised $10,000 last weekend for Feeding America. So
in 4 days, we're going to do it in 2.
They had 5 days, didn't they? They were like, we're doing it in less than half the time. We're going to beat them, and we love those guys. Okay. Already, Howard's already said he doesn't want it. He wants to go to someone who's not in the industry. So I'm going to re-randomize it already and give it to Jonathan Gorin. There you go. I will hook up Marty with your contact information. You guys can figure that out. Thank you there, Howard, who's in the chat right now. You can chat along with us. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what you do like. And I will flash those up on the screen here and there throughout Podapolooza. So, all right, let's before we move on to our last guys, I want to give you guys each a chance to remind people where you can reach on social media, because I don't want to run out of time and miss that out. miss out on that. And also, I want you guys to plug your work. So, Andrew, why don't you remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug what you do?
All right, yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AndrewGould4, that's Gould, and you can find my writing at Fantasy Pros and Pitcher List. Yeah.
There you go. Daniel, where can people reach you and what do you do?
Yeah, again, so you can find me on Twitter at drot, DROT_6. I'm writing for Justin's website, Friends with Fantasy Benefits. I write podcasts, doing baseball and basketball right now, so definitely be sure to tune into both of those.
And at one point, you were the youngest participant ever in TGFBI. So were you, 17 when you had your first year in?
Yeah, has anyone beaten me? So it started I think I was 18.
No. There's a guy, and I believe he's coming on at some point, named Jordan Eisen, who was 16 last year in his first year in TGFBI and writing in the industry. So, I mean, that's how crazy it is. Like, if you want to write, you just go get yourself a WordPress, go get yourself a podcast, and, you do it. So, but it's awesome to see like these younger guys that I never thought about, I should write or I should podcast when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. It's amazing you guys are putting in the effort.
Yeah, you should definitely send me his Twitter or something. I don't know him, so I would love to link up with him.
I believe it's at Vision of Sports. I'll try to tweet it out later, but definitely a young kid, but a kid who knows his stuff. I've talked to him on his podcast. I'm actually going on his podcast, I believe, next week. So, Chuck, remind everybody where you can be reached and kind of plug what you sometimes do.
So can be found on Twitter at thatguy1681, and I'll be found at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com.
There you go. And Michael, remind everybody where you can be reached and all the cool things you do.
Yeah, I'm at MJ Govier on Twitter. G-O-V as in Victor, I-E-R. And you can follow it's the Rico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball Podcast. 2 L's, 2 Z's on Twitter. Cue the Gary Busey. I don't think we have Gary today. And don't forget, I'm part of the Roto Fanatic team. I run Roto Fanatic with Matt Williams, Carmen Mayorano, Crosby Spencer, Paul Mamino. Some really great people. Check it out. We got the Data Monster. It's really cool. And the First Day Pod I do with my lovely, sweet Canadian girlfriend, Leanne Hello, at Be The Hugger on Twitter. The First Day Pod on Twitter and all standard social media platforms.
Definitely check out that podcast that he does with Leanne. Fantastic. And I'm, obviously biased because my wife's going to be on, but I listen even when my wife's not on because it's just great. Great juju, right?
Yes.
It's great knowledge, great juju. It's a fantastic job you guys do at the First Day Pod. Marty, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do in the industry.
Absolutely. So it's Marty. You can find me on Twitter, Marty_Tallman. I write for the Motor City Bengals, which is primarily focused on the Detroit Tigers, but I come at it with a fantasy baseball view and point like that. Last one I did was a deep dive on Willie Castro, who, spoiler alert, don't buy in. But yeah,
there you go. See, it wasn't even one of his fades, and he gave it to us anyways. That's how benevolent Marty is. Gives us cards, gives us fade Willie Castro, and I'm actually right there with you, my friend. Andrew, give us your last fade/bust.
Yeah, so this guy's going a little deeper compared to the others mentioned, but at pick 200, it still seems too high. That's Leotis Taveras. I'm fading the pure speed, like possible one-trick ponies. Especially, even last year, in a good year that has people excited, he had 227. And this is a career in the minors. He had a career slash line of 260, 323, 358. So I'm getting Delino DeShields vibes, and I'm kind of scared that the bottom could really fall out and just be benched or demoted. So I'd rather get my speed early and then just kind of chip away in the middle rounds as I'm building my team, rather than going for someone who can steal 30 or completely bust without giving you anything else really. Because I know he had 4 homers last year in 33 games, but anybody prorating that is making a big mistake. He's never hit more than 8 in a single season. So I don't buy the power either. So yeah, 200, there's too many power hitters and interesting pitchers available for me to go with Taveras.
All right, that's kind of a trendy sleeper, as my co-host Paul Sporer would say. He is a wide awake sleeper. So you fading him, that's a really, really good call out right there. I like that. Daniel, give me your last guy.
Yeah, so My last guy, I'm honestly pretty surprised that he's going this high. It's Dansby Swanson. His ADP since February 1st is 105, which is just really high to me. His upside in power and speed is pretty limited, in my opinion. That Braves lineup is also pretty stacked. I can't imagine he's going to be hitting in the upper half, so that probably leaves him in the lower half, which will take away some plate appearances. Looking at his numbers from last year based on previous years, his walk rate decreased, his strikeout rate increased, and his BABIP went up by 50 points. So if the season went for 162 games, he probably would have regressed anyways. And he made real progress. Like his weighted runs created plus went up. His slugging percentage was better. But I just don't think it's enough to justify this draft position that's shot up. I mean, it has to be at least over 100 spots from last year. Carlos Correa is going at 122. I feel like there's a lot less risk there. But yeah, I will not be taking Dansby at 105.
I feel like you're sucking up to the boss a little bit here, considering my hate of Dansby Swanson for years. I'm with you though. Like, don't get me wrong. I definitely have him ranked higher than I did coming into last year because he did perform. It was still a small sample though, and I don't know that I'm quite buying in that small sample. I do worry about where he's hitting in the lineup. And, you know, he's a guy that has had trouble staying on the field. I know he did it last year, but it was only 60 games. Can he do it for 162? I don't know if he can. So I'm fading that price, especially. Not someone I'm necessarily crossing off my draft board, but not someone I'm targeting either. Chuck, give me your last guy.
My last one I would actually have to say is Alex Bregman. I'm a little bit worried from what is it, 30 pounds he put on in the offseason. And I know he hasn't really missed a whole lot of time through his playing time, but that's a lot of weight to gain. It's going to put a lot of pressure on his knees. It might throw off his swing just from the added weight. So I'm kind of fading him out because I don't really know what to make of it. It could work out great for him. He could add up a ton of power out of it, but I just don't know what to make of it. And so I think I'd rather just shy away from him than give in, especially with, you know, given same thing, he's probably going about mid-third round, I'd say. It's iffy to give up that much for somebody like that.
Right, and that's one of those things that I don't think we talk about enough in the industry is, like, we see these players come in the best shape of their life, quote unquote, or the players come in and it's like, oh, they gained all this, you know, weight and now they're fat or now they're muscular. And I think we forget that baseball is a sport about mechanics and fluidity. And sometimes big weight gains or big weight losses aren't good things. We still saw this with Luke Weaver a few years ago, where it's like he put on all this muscle and everybody's like, oh, look at this, he's gonna have a bounce back year. It messed with his mechanics. We look at guys like Yandy Diaz with these huge guns, and he can't raise his launch angle because he doesn't have the flexibility in those arms. And so I think often we see like the guys like Vlad coming in losing 42 pounds, and we're all like, oh, yes. We don't know how that's going to translate on the field until we actually see it. And so
that's bullshit. That can't be a bad thing, though. I mean, I'm sorry. I got to jump in real quick. He lost all that weight. That will help him. There are cases where gaining weight, like you said, the Yandy deal, yeah, I can't move anymore. That's cool. But losing 40 pounds, I mean, unless he had cancer or something, he was really sick, then obviously that would be terribly alarming. But otherwise, it's going to make his confidence feel good. He's going to raise his overall attitude. Like, man, I feel great. I feel good. I don't see how that's a negative. I really don't. In that case.
I'm not necessarily saying it's a negative. What I'm saying is we don't know if it's a positive. And it can
actually
sometimes be a negative.
I was going to say on Raid and Barrels, the last episode that came out, Britt and DVR, they talked about that exactly. And they said a lot of times it's just a player just trying to, they'll lose weight just to sustain what they have right there. So not too much change may come from that. Or what Britt said, overall, there's just good or bad, nothing really changes. They're still who they are.
And I mean, we've seen this with guys like Pablo Sandoval, who struggled with his weight, and then he would come in either heavy or he'd come in really thin, and people are like, oh, it's the year. And sometimes he played well, but I don't think it had necessarily as much to do with weight loss, weight gain. He was just a good hitter, and he figured it out. And sometimes we see these things hamper people, and maybe it's a matter of Vlad knows, hey, during the season, I'm on the road all the time. I'm going to be eating, and maybe if I lose some weight now, it won't affect me as much down the road. We don't know, but I think sometimes we see these massive like weight gains, weight losses, as a positive thing because they put on muscle or they lost fat. And we honestly don't know until we see it, how that's really going to translate on the field.
I feel like at this point, it's become like such a meme that Like you just kind of, it's easy to laugh at and dismiss it, and you can kind of risk actually missing out on something actionable. Like I remember a couple years ago with Dom Smith, he lost weight. He said he treated his sleep apnea and reported like being at such higher energy. So
see,
like,
and
I
that's
definitely get what
something
you're
for
saying.
me. Yeah, that's something for me that is actionable, right? Like sleep apnea. I've got sleep apnea. I wear a mask. If you go back and watch the first segment of Podapolooza, you might be able to see the line still on my face from my mask because I rolled out of bed 45 minutes before this thing started, and like that has made a huge difference in my life, energy wise. Getting that mask from a few years ago before I had it, but like unless there's something else actionable with it, like I'm just not gonna overrate it. Michael, give me your last guy.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Andrew, because Dominic Smith is my last guy. Man, you guys are like reading. We're all connected here.
That's the professionalism right there to give you the segue.
I just knew.
Beautiful. You're pro, Andrew. You are pro, and I appreciate that. Dominic Smith is not necessarily going top 100. He's not top 50, but he is still too high for me. I don't get it. I understand it, I guess. He gave beautiful, his speech last year when he cried and with the Black Lives Matter movement, all that stuff going on. It was very powerful. So there's nothing to do with him as a person. I really respect him as a human being. But we're talking about fantasy baseball here. We want results. In a results-based business, Dominic Smith does not belong where he's at. His career BABIP, it kind of jumped up last season, but overall, he's a 304 BABIP guy. He had 368 last year, 320 in 2019, and similar amount of plate appearances both years. So, which one of those is real? Is he a 300-plus hitter, or is he more like a 280, 290 hitter? That really isn't even the problem for me. I believe he's talented. In the end, it's about playing time. And the Mets are a mess. I mean, they have so many damn guys that could be filling in spots. And for those of you that think Pete Alonso is going to be sitting more with Dominic Smith taking his place at first base, you are sorely mistaken, my friends. That is not going to happen. Pete Alonso he's a god there. I mean, I don't live in New York, but I know that he was a huge deal. He had the 50 home run plus season a couple years ago, and he became the man there. He's not going to be dismissed now all of a sudden. So there's nowhere else for him to play. Outfield, he's terrible. It's just not enough at bats. So I would be dropping him like way down, like 200 ADP or below at minimum. He's too high right now. Don't take that risk. Unless there's an injury that happens after this. Spring training starts tomorrow, and shit can happen. So I do give that caveat. Otherwise, no thanks.
Or if the DH does come to the National League, like I keep
of
saying,
course,
I think saying it is going to happen, and everybody keeps telling me I'm crazy.
Whoa. I don't think you're crazy. That could very well happen because the playoffs were decided the day the season started last year before the Nats and the Yankees kicked off. So, yes, if the DH comes, then forget this whole segment.
Yeah, but I think you're right, though. I mean, right now there is a roster crunch. And it seems like to me like there are NL teams acting like they're going to have that DH spot and signing guys, Todd Frazier signed in Pittsburgh and CJ Cron signed in Colorado and the Padres have signed every single person available. So, I mean, like it seems like these teams are kind of planning for maybe an extra spot in that lineup. But if it doesn't come, Dom Smith is a terrible defender. At least in the outfield, he could be fine at first base. But yeah, I mean that could be a problem for him. And I do like the skills on Dom Smith.
I know it's Marty's turn. I just want to say, if the DH does happen, it'll be because the front offices of Major League Baseball pushed and conceded. They're the ones that are going to make this happen. Nobody else.
There you go, Marty. Give me your last guy.
All right, yeah. So Manny Machado. I'm just not a Manny Machado guy in general. So when he had his big, comeback last year, I was on the sidelines looking at it. But so for coming in the 2021, ADP is 23.5, so around mid-second round. I mean, what you're doing is you're paying for his ceiling. Just like Jose Abreu, you're paying for what he did last year. And if you just look at Machado over his last 4 seasons, he's very inconsistent. Batting average went from, it was 259, then 297, 256, now 304. And so with where he's at and all the, the Devers and the Arenados or Bregman, who I'll think will have a better, average than him or at least close to it. I'd rather have that. And I guess the biggest question is whether or not you believe in the steals. So, I mean, what was it? I think in like 2017, he went the whole year without having a single steal. And last year, I think he had 6 in a small amount of time. So I don't believe in the speed. His sprint speed's like in the 38th percentile last year. I don't think his instincts will be able to take over enough to make him, 10, 15, 20 stolen bases. So where he's at right now, it's an easy fade for me.
Wow, that hurts again. Hurts my soul. I'm
going after you.
Yeah, you're coming for me. Like these guys are not afraid to attack the guys that I love, and I like that. I like disagreement. I like respectful debate. I completely disagree with you on Manny Machado. Like, he has just never been bad. Never. Like, maybe you don't
He's going to play a lot. He's going to play almost every game.
He's never been bad? That's bullshit. All right, well, our time's up, man, but yeah.
He's never been bad. Go look at his career. He's never had a bad season.
But I'm basing it off his second. We're talking about his ADP, though. That's where I don't believe in his steals, and I don't believe in his average. So I just have to.
It's a fair criticism. But yeah, no, and
you take him every time.
I will take him. I'm putting you in my league in TGFBI next year. I don't think you're in my league this year. So, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Again, this is going to be a situation where we're switching over to a new feed. So if you're watching this live, you need to go and find the next feed. It's going to be tweeted out. It'll be on the YouTube. It'll be on Facebook. But we're going to switch feeds. I'm going to let all you guys go so I can jump into the next one and start it up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And everybody who's watching live, keep watching. Go find that next feed. That'll be the last feed change of the day.
See ya.
Right.